The last disciple lunged, murder in his eyes. Xiang Yu tried to stand, but the sword jammed in his shoulder, scraped bone, and dropped him to a knee. Steel hissed toward his face. Regret hit harder than fear. Why did I leave the mountain? If I live, I'm never stepping outside again. The blade froze. Then the attacker's head lifted from his shoulders, spinning away in a spray of red. The body toppled. Li Yao stood where the man had been, clothes torn and blood spattered, and to Xiang Yu, she looked like salvation itself. Senior brother. She slid her sword home and rushed over. Are you hurt? I'm fine. She grabbed the hilt jutting from his shoulder. This will sting. She yanked. White pain exploded. His screams scattered birds from the trees. She popped a pill into his mouth. Heat spread from his stomach like liquid sunlight, washing through muscle and bone. Exhaustion vanished. Skin knitted. He stood, stunned, shoulders smooth as if nothing had happened. That pill's worth a fortune, he thought. She saved me again. And a single walk outside nearly killed me again. Message received. They searched the bodies. All he found was a basic sword manual. Meager, but better than nothing. What about the rest? Li Yao asked. They dragged the corpses into a clearing. Azure fire poured from her palm and ate flesh, bone, and blood until nothing remained. On the way back, she summoned her sword and stepped onto it, motioning him up. He climbed on, stiff and awkward. They rose into the clouds. Any other day, he'd have gaped at the view. Today the air between them felt tight. Li Yao flew in silence, expression unreadable. When they crossed the sect boundary and set down, Xiang Yu finally exhaled. The tiny sound made her glance over. The Empress's words flickered in her mind. He moves through a festival like he expects a meteor to fall. Watching him, she believed it. At the foot of Mountain Heart Pavilion, she stopped so suddenly he bumped her back. She turned, eyes steady. Senior brother, did you enjoy our date? It was nice, he said carefully. Then why were you on guard the whole time? You kept looking around like an ambush was coming. He hadn't realized it showed. First time off the mountain, he said. I was nervous. Her shoulders eased. Then do you want to go on another date? Silence. You said you enjoyed it. Why not go again? Tears pricked her eyes. Panic flared. Rejecting the obvious protagonist was suicide. Agreeing meant more near-death strolls. He stepped closer and brushed away a tear. I was scared, he said gently. Scared something would happen to you, and I couldn't protect you. Really? Hope brightened her face. He nodded. She smiled. You don't have to worry. I can protect you. Like today. Time to steer. I've liked you for a long time, he said, watching color rise in her cheeks. But you're the sect's genius. I'm not. I'm not worthy yet. She started to protest. He pressed on. So I decided to cultivate. I'll become someone worthy of you. When I'm the strongest in the world, I'll marry you. Do you promise? I promise. Joy broke across her face. She twirled away, running up the path. Don't forget. Xiang Yu watched her go, then climbed at his own pace, the new sword manual tucked away. What he'd said wasn't entirely a lie. If he ever reached invincible, he'd consider it. She was kind. She'd save him twice. She was dangerous to be around. For now, the plan was simple. Do not leave the sect for the next 1,000 years. He smiled wryly. The courtship bought him the perfect excuse. Training, after all, demanded absolute focus, and nowhere was safer than behind these walls. Xiang Yu lay on his back, staring at the ceiling. The pill Li Yao gave him had closed his wounds and refilled his strength, but his mind was wrecked. A simple outing had become an ambush and 2 near deaths. Each moment replayed with razor detail, the glint of steel, the cold brush of fear, until his body tensed on reflex. The lesson was obvious. This world eats the weak. With no spiritual root, picking fights was suicide. His plan hadn't changed. Stay small, train steady, stack gains. I need to work harder, he thought. But his eyelids dragged, thoughts scattered, and sleep took him within minutes. In the dining hall, Elder Gua and Li Yao ate in rare silence. The elder glanced at the empty seat. Where's your senior brother? He doesn't usually skip training, he said, genuinely puzzled. Lately the boy's diligence had become part of the pavilion's rhythm, and More urgently, so had his cooking. We were attacked on the way back, Li Yao said like she was mentioning bad weather. He was probably shaken. Eldergua's brows lifted, then settled. They were alive, the attackers were not. He had guesses and preferred not to confirm them. After a few brave bites of her food, he set his chopsticks down. I'm going to cultivate, he announced, grateful for the excuse. At the door he added, with real concern and a hint of culinary desperation, take care of your senior brother. When he was gone, Li Yao looked up at nothing in particular and spoke clearly. Is there a way for someone without a spiritual root to gain one? A voice replied inside her mind, calm and curious. There are a few ways. What? Senior brother promised to marry me when he's the strongest, she said, cheeks warming. If he can't cultivate, that day will never come. I hadn't considered that, the Empress admitted. Then I'll find him a path. If he can't become the strongest, I'll make him the strongest. A beat of silence. There are methods, but the best require a cultivation realm you don't have. Li Yao's face fell. But there are other, less certain options. Her eyes lit. What are they? A rebirth pill. It's used by soul-body integration experts pushing for tribulation transcendence. It nourishes body and soul. During reconstruction, there's a small chance a person without a root might form one. Small chance is still a chance. Yes, small, untested. Where do I get it? Do you have a recipe? I do, but you need to be tribulation transcendence to refine it. However, there's another way. Ow! A tomb of a tribulation transcendence cultivator. If you're to rate it, you'll need at least golden core cultivation. Li Yao went quiet, thinking, then her fists tightened. Golden core? I'll reach it soon. She stood and headed for her room, purpose in every step. Watching through her eyes, the Empress noted the shift. The talented, lazy girl had vanished. In her place was a blade being honed. Her speed was already bending expectations. At this rate, the Empress realized her own return might come far sooner than planned.
Hey everyone, Firescale Audiobooks here. If there's a novel you'd love to hear more of, you can support us on Patreon or Ko-fi. Depending on your tier, I'll make extra parts just for the stories you're most excited about. Usually I can only upload 4 to 5 parts of each novel, but with your support, we can go beyond that. And of course, don't forget to hit subscribe. It helps more than you know.
The translucent blue notification pierced through Xiang Yu's consciousness, pulling him from the depths of slumber. Calculating settlement. His eyes snapped open, immediately scanning his surroundings as awareness returned. The familiar walls of his humble room greeted him, prompting a soft sigh of relief. He ran his fingers through his disheveled hair, the remnants of his dreams still clinging to the edges of his mind. For the first time since arriving in this cultivation world, his sleep had been haunted by vivid recollections of his battles. Not quite nightmares, but unsettling nonetheless. He steadied his breathing, pushing away the lingering images of blood and steel. These memories only reinforced his determination. Someday, he would possess enough strength to stand on his own, to face dangers without relying on his junior sister's intervention. The path would be long, but with his system's assistance, not impossible. As if responding to his thoughts, the notification expanded. Calculation complete. Mountain Heart Scripture, second layer, 11/200, plus 11/200. Basic Knife Technique, intermediate, 100/300, plus 30/300. Experience points doubled. Basic Knife Technique, intermediate, 100/300, intermediate, 200/300. Mountain Heart Scripture, second layer, 11/200, second layer, 22/200. Next settlement, 23 hours, 59 minutes, and 59 seconds. Xiang Yu blinked in surprise, scrutinizing the numbers with growing amazement. 30 points in his knife technique? How was that possible when he hadn't practiced at all? The realization dawned gradually. This had happened once before, after his confrontation with Gu Wuqing's gang. Combat experience, it seemed, yielded exponentially greater returns than control practice. Even so, he firmly shook his head. No, he wouldn't deliberately seek out conflicts merely to accelerate his growth. Such a strategy might bring short-term gains, but the associated risks far outweighed any potential benefits. His attention shifted to the Mountain Heart Scripture's progress. 11 points gained overnight was unprecedented. 3 points had already existed before settlement, and a 30-point increase in his knife technique would have contributed another 3 through the conversion mechanism. But that only accounted for 6 points. Where had the additional 5 come from? After several moments of contemplation, understanding struck him with sudden clarity. The healing pill. His junior sister's miraculous medicine must have contained body-refining properties beyond simple healing. 5 points of direct advancement in the scripture was astonishingly valuable, equivalent to approximately 50 points of knife technique progress. He silently thanked Li Yao for her generosity, a rare smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. With a thought, he summoned his full status screen. Name: Xiang Yu. Realm: body refining, 2nd layer. Species: human. Spiritual root: null. Techniques: basic knife technique. Intermediate: 200/300. Scriptures: Mountain Heart Scripture. 2nd layer: 32/200. System function: double EXP. Cooldown: 24 hours. The double knife technique had contributed another 10 points to his scripture, twice the value provided by Li Yao's pill. This confirmation reinforced his belief that consistent training remained the optimal path to advancement. His knife technique now stood at 200 points, poised to reach major success after the next settlement. While this progress was commendable, he couldn't suppress a twinge of disappointment regarding the system's limitations. Based on previous observations, experience points didn't overflow during advancement, meaning tomorrow's doubling would only provide the 100 points needed to reach major success, not the full potential 200 points. This inefficiency would cost him 10 potential points in his Mountain Heart Scripture, a frustrating waste of resources he could ill afford. Yet the system operated according to its own immutable rules, and no amount of clever strategizing could circumvent this particular restriction. With a resigned sigh, Xiang Yu rose from his bed. Despite this minor setback, his path remained clear. Each day brought him incrementally closer to his ultimate goal: survival in this unforgiving world. The remnants of sleep had fled Xiang Yu's mind completely, leaving him alert despite the late hour. Having already rested, the thought of returning to his bed held no appeal. More importantly, he couldn't justify wasting precious time that could be dedicated to advancement. His cultivation journey tolerated no unnecessary delays. He slipped from his room silently, the wooden floor cool beneath his feet as he navigated the familiar path to his training ground. The night air embraced him with its crisp clarity, stars winking overhead like distant observers of his solitary quest. As he reached the clearing, a sudden realization struck him. Training his knife technique further tonight would be inefficient. The system would double those points regardless of additional effort, and any overflow would simply vanish when he reached major success. The mathematical reality was undeniable. He needed to diversify. His fingers brushed against the sword technique manual he'd recovered from the fallen disciple, the memory of that desperate battle still fresh in his mind. Yes, this would be his next focus. Opening the weathered pages by moonlight, he absorbed the fundamental principles before attempting to implement them. Only then did he confront a practical obstacle. He possessed no sword. The knife tucked at his waist wouldn't suffice for these new forms. Fortunately, he recalled the pavilion storage area contained practice weapons for disciples. He wouldn't need to disturb anyone's rest to procure what he needed. The practice sword felt strange in his grip at first, heavier than his knife, with different balance and reach. As he executed the initial movements described in the manual, he noted the underlying similarities between the techniques. The foundational principles remained constant, but the execution differed significantly. Where knife techniques emphasize close-quarter precision and rapid strikes, sword forms capitalized on superior range and broader cutting surfaces. With each repetition, the unfamiliar weight distributed more naturally through his arms. His muscles adapted gradually, compensating for the different balance point and momentum. What began as awkward mimicry slowly transformed into fluid motion as midnight gave way to the earliest hints of dawn. Xiang Yu's concentration remained absolute. His awareness narrowed to the relationship between his body and the blade. He barely noticed as the eastern horizon began lightening, the first bird song announcing morning's imminent arrival. Golden rays gradually illuminated his practicing form, sweat glistening on his brow despite the cool morning air. From his private chambers atop the mountain, Elder Guo observed his diligent disciple with quiet approval. This was the Xiang Yu he had come to expect, dedicated and resilient, making up for lost time without complaint or self-pity. The elder silently congratulated himself on investing in the soundproofing array. Without it, the constant swishing of blade through air would have rendered meditation impossible throughout the night. As he continued watching, the elder noted with interest that Xiang Yu was wielding a sword rather than his usual knife. Presumably, he had acquired a sword technique from yesterday's confrontation. He had planned to give Xiang Yu a new technique to practice, but he seemed to have found one for himself. But as he observed the boy train, a thought crystallized in the elder's mind. He couldn't provide additional techniques at this juncture, but he could certainly offer a proper weapon. Although the practice weapon seemed adequate for training purposes, it would prove woefully insufficient for actual combat. Yes, a quality sword would serve as both practical tool and gesture of recognition for the boy's unexpected dedication. Below, oblivious to his master's contemplations, Xiang Yu continued his relentless practice. The sun climbed higher, bathing the training ground in warm light that did nothing to diminish his focus or determination. Each swing brought him incrementally closer to his ultimate goal. Elder Guo, who had observed the girl's unusual demeanor with equal interest, likewise chose discretion over inquiry. Instead, he turned his attention to Xiang Yu, producing a carefully wrapped bundle from within his robes. "Here, this is for you," the elder announced, extending the package with casual dignity. Xiang Yu accepted the offering with appropriate reverence, his fingers carefully unwrapping the protective cloth to reveal a sword nestled within. Xiang Yu's eyes widened. A sword, not a practice weapon of wood or dulled metal, but a genuine blade. Though only classified as a low-level magical treasure in the grand hierarchy of weapons, the significance wasn't lost on him. In a world where equipment was ranked meticulously, common, magical, spiritual, divine, heavenly, and immortal, each further subdivided into low, mid, and high tiers. Even this modest blade represented substantial progress. Besides, he wasn't going to use it to fight, so it didn't matter. He tested the sword's weight and balance, executing experimental swings that cut through the air with satisfying whispers. The weapon felt natural in his grip, neither too heavy nor too light, responding to his movements with intuitive harmony. Whether this comfort stemmed from the sword's superior craftsmanship or his growing familiarity with sword techniques remained unclear, but ultimately irrelevant. What mattered was the undeniable improvement over his previous training sword. With brief but sincere thanks to his master, Xiang Yu returned to his practice ground, eager to continue his advancement with this newly acquired asset. The afternoon passed in a blur of focused repetition, each movement honed through countless iterations as the sun traced its arc across the azure sky. Evening brought another shared meal, during which Li Yao maintained her unusual reticence. Though Xiang Yu noticed her continued preoccupation, he deliberately avoided dwelling on potential causes. Whatever had captured her attention represented precisely the kind of protagonist-centered drama he strived to avoid. Better to focus on controllable variables, like his own cultivation progress, than speculate about matters beyond his influence. After dinner concluded, he returned to his solitary practice, his new sword cutting through the darkness with precise arcs that gradually refined with each repetition. The night deepened around him, stars wheeling overhead as he maintained his relentless pace until the familiar blue screen materialized before his eyes. Calculating settlement. Calculation complete. Mountain Heart Scripture. Second layer. 32/200, plus 10/200. Basic knife technique. Intermediate, 200/300. Basic sword technique. Beginner, 50/100, plus 50/100. Experience points doubled. Basic sword technique. Beginner, 50 out of 100. Minor success, 0 out of 200. Basic knife technique. Intermediate, 200/300. Major success, 0 out of 400. Mountain Heart Scripture. Second layer, 32/200. Second layer, 64/200. Next settlement, 23 hours, 59 minutes, and 59 seconds. Xiang Yu studied the notification with undisguised wonder. 50 points accumulated in his sword technique after just one day of practice? The progress defied conventional expectations, though logical explanations existed. His extended practice session, stretching from midnight to midnight, certainly contributed, but the primary factor likely stemmed from technique transference. His intermediate mastery of knife techniques had created foundational understanding that transferred naturally to the similar discipline of swordsmanship, forcing his fundamental principles before finally permitting himself rest. As sleep claimed him, his thoughts already reached toward tomorrow's training and the incremental advances it would bring. The dawn light painted the mountain in soft hues as Xiang Yu emerged from his humble dwelling, his movements practiced and purposeful. The familiar path to the secluded river beckoned, offering its daily ritual of purification before training. The cold water embraced him with bracing clarity, washing away lingering fatigue and preparing both body and mind for the challenges ahead. As rivulets traced paths down his increasingly defined physique, Xiang Yu noted subtle changes in his form. Muscles once soft had gained density and definition, while movements that had required conscious effort now flowed with natural precision. The transformation, though gradual, spoke to his relentless dedication, physical evidence of his advancement along the cultivation path. Refreshed and focused, he made his way to the training ground, the morning dew still clinging to grass beneath his feet. Rather than immediately beginning his practice, however, he paused to summon his status screen, examining his current progress. Name, Xiang Yu. Realm, body refining second layer. Species, human. Spiritual root, null. Techniques, basic knife technique. Major success, 0 out of 400. Basic sword technique. Minor success, 0 out of 200. Scriptures, Mountain Heart Scripture. Second layer, 74/200. System function, double EXP, cooldown, 24 hours. Satisfaction flickered briefly across his features as he noted his Mountain Heart Scripture's steady advancement. At this rate, he would likely break through to the third layer after just 2 more daily resets, an impressive pace by any standard. Next, he evaluated his techniques, both currently showing 0 experience points following their recent advancements. This presented a tactical dilemma, with limited hours available for training and 2 techniques demanding attention, which deserve priority. The knife technique had reached major success, a significant milestone representing mastery that few cultivators achieved. Conversely, his sword technique remained at minor success, offering potentially easier advancement but less refined capability. Xiang Yu's brow furrowed as he contemplated his options, weighing relative benefits. After thorough consideration, inspiration struck. Why not do both? Nothing mandated exclusive focus on a single technique each day. A strategy materialized in his mind. He would begin with knife practice during morning and afternoon sessions, when his energy remained at peak levels. The technique's major success status demanded greater concentration and precision, making fresh focus essential for meaningful progress. Following the evening meal, he would transition to sword practice, applying insights gleaned from the more advanced knife technique to accelerate his sword mastery. Decision made, Xiang Yu retrieved his knife with purposeful movements, settling into his stance with practiced ease. The blade cut through morning air with fluid precision, each movement flowing naturally into the next with harmony that belied the discipline's difficulty. From his private chambers, Elder Gua observed his disciple with growing bewilderment. When he noticed Xiang Yu practicing with his knife again instead of the sword, he initially wondered if the boy was struggling with a new weapon. But as he watched more closely, his confusion transformed into shock. "What? How can this be?" he muttered, leaning forward for a better view. The disciple's movements told an impossible story. "There is no way, right?" he thought, unable to trust his own eyes. Yet the evidence was undeniable. The precision, the fluidity, the perfect execution. Xiang Yu was demonstrating knife technique at the major success level. The elder couldn't comprehend how his supposedly talentless disciple had advanced so rapidly. He had expected such progress to take a month or two, if not longer. Was the boy secretly a genius, after all? Elder Gua stroked his beard thoughtfully. First his female disciple, concealing her true abilities, and now this. Both his disciples were clearly hiding extraordinary secrets. But as their master, his role wasn't to forcefully uncover their mysteries, only to guide them when needed and observe their development. In the tranquil confines of the scripture pavilion, Elder Mezuan sat cross-legged in deep meditation, his consciousness drifting through realms of spiritual energy. The abrupt sound of shattering crystal violently yanked him back to reality. His eyes opened slowly, their depths reflecting confusion as he lifted his gaze toward the wall. Life lamps hung there, crystalline vessels containing flickering flames that represented the living essence of key sect members. Each lamp maintained a mystical connection to its corresponding cultivator, extinguishing only when that person's life force ceased. One lamp had shattered, its fragments scattered across the floor below. "Who has fallen?" he wondered dispassionately, scanning the wall. Then his eyes locked onto the specific location, and disbelief washed over his weathered features. "How is this possible?" he exclaimed, his composed demeanor cracking. "How could Gu Hanming die?" The elder rose with uncharacteristic haste, his robes swirling around him as he strode from his chamber. His footsteps echoed through the corridor as he descended to the lower floor where the main scripture hall resided. There, instead of finding the dean at his customary post, he discovered a mere disciple occupying the position. "Where is the dean?" he demanded, his voice laced with barely contained fury. The young disciple leapt to his feet, face draining of color as he sensed the elder's presence. Though both the dean and elder Mei were core formation cultivators, the pressure emanating from the elder felt incomparably more oppressive, like comparing a gentle stream to a raging ocean. "The dean had something to take care of and told me to look after the scriptures," the disciple stammered, sweat beading on his forehead. Elder Mei's expression twisted with suspicion. "What thing?" he pressed, his tone sharpening. Well." The disciple hesitated, caught in an impossible position. Revealing the truth might earn the dean's wrath upon his return, yet withholding information from the elder before him seemed infinitely more dangerous. Sensing the disciple's reluctance, Elder Mei's aura flared menacingly, spiritual pressure crushing down like a mountain. "What is it? Speak up." The disciple flinched visibly, self-preservation overriding all other concerns. "The sect genius Li Yao killed his brother, so he went to ambush them after they left the sect," he blurted, words tumbling out in a panicked rush. Upon hearing this, Elder Mei slammed his fist onto the table with such force that the sturdy wooden structure splintered instantly. "Damn it!" He fixed his piercing gaze on the trembling disciple. "Go and find out if Li Yao has returned," he commanded. The disciple bolted from the hall without hesitation, grateful for any excuse to escape the elder's suffocating presence. Elder Mei lowered himself into the dean's vacant seat, his mind churning with calculations. The dean had always been impulsive, prone to emotional decisions, but this time he had crossed a dangerous threshold. This wasn't merely a personal mistake. It was a catastrophic disruption of their carefully orchestrated plans. While the elder held no particular affection for either the dean or his brother, losing a core formation cultivator represented a significant setback. After all the resources invested in elevating Gu Hanming to that cultivation level and using his influence to give him the dean position. His death constituted a substantial loss. Time crawled by until the disciple finally returned, slightly breathless from his investigation. Some people have reported seeing Li Yao and her senior brother returning to the pavilion yesterday, he reported. Damn it, Gu Hanming. You got yourself killed and couldn't even eliminate the threat, Elder Mei thought bitterly. He released a heavy sigh. Though the dean's methods had been reckless, his assessment wasn't entirely wrong. Li Yao did indeed pose a significant threat to their plans. Now that she had begun inflicting actual losses, the timetable for her elimination would need acceleration before she could cause further damage. In the dappled light of the training ground, Xiang Yu moved with methodical precision, his knife cutting through the air with practiced efficiency. Each swing built upon the foundations of the last, his movements fluid and economical as he refined his technique through endless repetition. The morning sun climbed higher, bathing his focused form in golden light that highlighted the sheen of perspiration on his brow. Birds called from nearby trees, their songs providing a natural rhythm to his practice. Yet Xiang Yu remained oblivious to these ambient sounds. His consciousness narrowed to the perfect harmony between body and blade. Hours passed this way, marked only by the changing angle of shadows across the clearing. After a brief interlude for lunch, he returned immediately to his regimen. Not a moment wasted, not a second squandered on unnecessary leisure. His dedication remained absolute, each movement executed with the singular purpose of advancement along his chosen path. When dinner time finally arrived, he noted Li Yao's absence with mild curiosity, but no real concern. She was likely engaged in her own cultivation breakthrough. Her affairs remained distinctly separate from his carefully isolated existence. Better that way. Protagonist problems belong to protagonists, not to cautious survivors like himself. Following the evening meal, Xiang Yu implemented the second phase of his training strategy, exchanging his knife for the sword gifted by Elder Gua. The weapon's weight felt different, but not unfamiliar in his grip as he began executing the basic forms. Just as he had hypothesized, the movements came with surprising ease. The underlying principles of his knife technique transferred naturally to this similar discipline, creating foundational understanding that accelerated his progress. Each swing revealed new insights, the blade responding to his intentions with increasing harmony as practice continued into the deepening twilight. This transferability wasn't universal, he reasoned. It functioned because both techniques shared fundamental principles. The knife and sword were kindred weapons, their differences more a matter of scale and application than foundational theory. He couldn't expect similar crossover benefits between entirely disparate disciplines. As stars emerged in the darkening sky, Xiang Yu refined his swordsmanship with unwavering focus. Each movement became more economical, each stance more stable, each cut more precise. He practiced finding the perfect angle, the ideal force, the exact timing, maximizing effectiveness while minimizing wasted energy. The blade ceased being a separate object and began feeling like a natural extension of his will, responding to his intentions with increasing fluidity. When midnight finally approached, the familiar blue screen materialized before his eyes. Calculating settlement. Calculation complete. Mountain Heart Scripture. Second layer, 75/200, plus 11/200. Basic knife technique. Major success, 5 out of 400, plus 5/400. Basic sword technique. Minor success, 20/200, plus 20/200. Experience points doubled. Basic sword technique. Minor success, 20/200. Minor success, 40/200. Basic knife technique. Major success, 5 out of 400. Major success, 10 out of 400. Mountain Heart Scripture. Second layer, 75/200. Second layer, 150/200. Next settlement, 23 hours, 59 minutes, and 59 seconds. Xiang Yu's analytical mind immediately dissected these results with practiced efficiency. His Mountain Heart scripture had gained 11 points, a single point of natural progress added to the 10 points already accumulated. The realization dawned quickly. After his knife technique's advancement to major success, the conversion rate had reverted to 5-1. A slight sigh escaped his lips as he contemplated the implications. Tomorrow would likely see another increase to 10-1 as his scripture approached breakthrough. Still, progress remained progress. He wasn't about to complain about becoming stronger, regardless of efficiency fluctuations. His attention shifted to his combat techniques. 5 points gained in knife technique despite minimal dedicated practice today. Particularly impressive considering the increased difficulty at major success level. More remarkable still were the 20 points accumulated in sword technique from just a few hours of focused training. These accelerating returns defied conventional logic. Normally, advancement should become progressively more difficult, yet his improvement rate seemed to be increasing. A tentative hypothesis formed in his mind. Perhaps the act of practicing techniques and scriptures was enhancing his fundamental comprehension abilities. In cultivation worlds, comprehension existed as a distinct attribute from innate talents like spiritual roots, a measure of one's ability to perceive and internalize profound principles. If his comprehension was indeed improving through practice, this opened fascinating possibilities for mastering even more powerful techniques at accelerated rates. With renewed curiosity, Xiang Yu summoned his complete status screen. Xiang Yu gaped at his status screen, transfixed by the unexpected addition that had materialized among his stats. A new attribute, enlightenment, now displayed beneath his other characteristics, showing low 1/1000. As with previous system features, understanding flooded his consciousness automatically, revealing its significance without need for explanation. This enlightenment stat represented exactly what he had been theorizing about, his fundamental comprehension ability. It measured his capacity to internalize cultivation principles and techniques, influencing both learning speed and the caliber of techniques he could master. The implications were staggering. Currently, only basic-level techniques remained within his grasp. His success with the Mountain Heart scripture had been mere luck rather than capability. But if the stat increased, high-level techniques would become accessible. Advanced methods would fall within his reach. Possibilities expanded before him like an unfurling scroll of limitless potential. One solitary point. That's what he had gained after countless hours of relentless practice. It wasn't much, but cultivating natural talent was notoriously difficult. What mattered wasn't the meager beginning, but the foundation it represented. Even this single point had dramatically accelerated his comprehension speed, enhancing his technique mastery beyond normal expectations. A grin spread across his face, excitement building as he projected future progress. If 1 point yielded such benefits, what would 2 points accomplish tomorrow? What about for the day after? Or 1,000? What if his enlightenment advanced beyond low classification? His mind raced, mentally calculating exponential growth curves while saliva gathered at the corner of his mouth. The system would double this value just as it doubled all his other experience points, creating a progression that would eventually overcome even his lack of spiritual roots. Abruptly, Xiang Yu caught himself, recognizing the dangerous path his thoughts were treading. Closing his eyes, he inhaled deeply, letting the cool night air fill his lungs as he centered his consciousness. With methodical precision, he recited personal affirmations that had become integral to his mental discipline, statements reinforcing his core principles and tempering unrealistic expectations. This self-correction ritual had evolved into a crucial habit, preventing him from straying into the reckless optimism that destroyed countless cultivators. Only after completing these mental exercises did true calm settle over him. With renewed focus, Xiang Yu decided adequate rest would optimize tomorrow's training. He retired to his humble dwelling, anticipating the system's next doubling with cautious optimism. From his private chambers, Elder Gua observed his disciples' peculiar behavior with bewilderment. "What's that kid so happy about?" he muttered, stroking his beard as he watched Xiang Yu's expression transform from unbridled excitement to sudden sobriety. Did he finally snap? The elder's confusion deepened as he witnessed the abrupt emotional transition, jubilation vanishing completely, replaced by Xiang Yu's characteristic composed demeanor. What the hell? How does he change emotions so quickly? The question lingered unanswered as the elder sighed heavily. These disciples truly tested his patience. His attention shifted toward Li Yao's quarters, where an unusual aura emanated with puzzling intensity. Something about it resembled the distinctive spiritual signature of core formation. But surely that was impossible. Shaking his head, Elder Gua chastised himself for such absurd speculation. How could she possibly be forming her core when she had only recently broken through to foundation establishment? I must be getting old, he concluded, dismissing the anomaly as imagination born from exhaustion. With another resigned sigh, the elder returned to his cultivation, unaware of the extraordinary developments unfolding under his very roof. Li Yao sat cross-legged in her chamber, maintaining the lotus posture with practiced precision as her face cycled through a kaleidoscope of expressions. Concentration, frustration, impatience, and determination flickering across her features in rapid succession. The spiritual atmosphere within the room felt charged, heavy with potential energy waiting to be unleashed. "Is it done yet?" she asked, her voice betraying her growing restlessness. A translucent figure hovered nearby, the spectral manifestation of the Empress's remnant soul. Her ethereal hands moved through complex patterns, fingers tracing arcane symbols in the air as she manipulated invisible energies throughout the room. "1 second," the Empress replied, her movements continuing uninterrupted despite the interruption. "How can you call yourself an immortal Empress when it takes you this long just to set up a formation?" Li Yao pressed, unable to contain her impatience as anticipation built within her. The Empress's spectral form flickered with momentary indignation. "Oomph. What do you know? If I was at my full power, I could set it up just by thinking about it," she retorted, though her ethereal brow furrowed with concentration as she struggled with the intricate formation. "Besides, it's not that easy to set up a formation that can hide all the chi fluctuations that happen during core formation," she added defensively, her spectral hands continuing their delicate work. Then, with a final gesture that seemed to lock something invisible into place, she announced, "Done. Happy now." Finally, Li Yao exhaled, her body relaxing visibly as she prepared for the momentous transformation ahead. Almost immediately, spiritual energy began converging within the room, streams of invisible qi flowing toward Li Yao like tributaries to a mighty river. The energies spiraled around her before being absorbed into her body with remarkable efficiency, each breath drawing more power into her expanding spiritual core. The qi gathering stage represented merely the introduction to cultivation, the first tentative connection to spiritual energy that separated cultivators from mortals. Foundation establishment followed, focusing on building the fundamental structures that would support all future advancement. This foundation wasn't merely symbolic. It determined the stability and potential of one's eventual core. Just as a tower's height depended upon the strength of its base, cultivation progress built upon these early realms. A weak foundation might support advancement for a time, but would inevitably lead to instability, bottlenecks, or even cultivation deviation as one ascended to higher realms. Regardless of how high one climbed, the journey always rested upon these initial stages. The spiritual energy converged with increasing intensity, swirling around Li Yao in visible currents as she guided the volatile qi with masterful precision. Her body had depleted its stored energy attempting the breakthrough, yet still required more, much more, to complete the transformation. Like a spiritual vacuum, she drew in ambient energy from her surroundings, the formation barely containing the disturbance this massive absorption created. Even with the Empress's intricate protective array, subtle fluctuations escaped containment. Li Yao's foundation proved exceptionally robust, necessitating a correspondingly powerful core and demanding unprecedented quantities of spiritual energy. The Empress found herself continuously reinforcing the formation, patching areas where the energy drain threatened to tear through her carefully constructed barriers. She watched Li Yao with undisguised awe, admiration gleaming in her spectral eyes. Impressive. Such a strong foundation, she thought, comparing it favorably to her own legendary beginnings. It's even better than mine was back in the day. Pride swelled within the Empress's ethereal form as she observed her chosen vessel. With proper guidance, Li Yao wouldn't merely serve as the means for her eventual revival. She might actually become a worthy successor, something the Empress had sought fruitlessly throughout her long existence. The possibility sent a thrill of excitement through her spectral being as she continued maintaining the formation, protecting their secret transformation from prying eyes and curious elders. The chamber glowed with ethereal light as Li Yao's breakthrough continued through the night, spiritual energy condensing and swirling around her in luminous currents. When dawn finally broke, she exhaled deeply, wisps of colorful qi escaping her lips like sacred mist. Success! She had officially broken through to the core formation stage. Despite this monumental achievement, a sigh escaped her lips. Just reaching core formation had consumed so much time and effort. How long would it take to advance to the golden core stage and truly help her senior brother? The road ahead seemed impossibly distant. One had to note the absurdity of her frustration. Li Yao had accomplished in mere months what took others' entire lifetimes to achieve. If cultivators heard her lamenting her slow progress, they would collapse from sheer indignation. If her pace was considered sluggish, weren't ordinary cultivators essentially standing still in comparison? The Empress, sensing her vessel's disappointment, observed with amusement that the struggles of a genius were truly peculiar. Still, she needed to provide motivation before Li Yao slipped back into her former laziness. It's okay, you don't have to break through to the golden core stage. The Empress's voice resonated in Li Yao's mind. Li Yao's head snapped up, eyes widening with surprise. I don't, but didn't you say I needed to at least reach the golden core stage? Confusion evident in her voice. Well, that's the requirement for a normal person, the Empress clarified. To put it simply, you don't need golden core stage cultivation. You need golden core stage combat power. The Empress's spectral form drifted closer as she elaborated. With your level 15 body refining combined with 2 perfect level sword techniques, your combat power already approximates mid-stage core formation. Her ethereal fingers traced patterns in the air as she continued. If you break through to mid-stage core formation realm, your effective combat power will reach late stage. Add 16th level body refining, and you'll match peak core formation. Perfect a spell technique on top of that, and you'll be capable of confronting early stage golden core cultivators. Relief washed over Li Yao's features as understanding dawned. This meant she wouldn't need to wait until reaching golden core to help her senior brother after all. She merely needed to advance to mid-stage core formation, child's play with her talent. Body refining might present challenges, but she could manage that too. As for spells, she understood their significance implicitly. Spell techniques differed fundamentally from normal techniques, relying on spiritual energy rather than weapons and bodily strength. While Foundation Establishment cultivators could infuse their weapons with qi for enhanced damage, this method remained woefully inefficient, like using a precious gemstone as a common rock. Only after breaking through to core formation could one truly manipulate qi for direct attacks. Learning proper spell techniques would maximize this capability. Typically, new core formation cultivators reported to the sect to receive appropriate spell techniques, but Li Yao preferred keeping her advancement secret for now. Fortunately, the Empress possessed techniques far superior to anything the sect could offer. Combined with Li Yao's extraordinary comprehension ability, mastering them would be relatively straightforward. Senior brother, just wait for me, she thought with renewed determination. I'll definitely find a rebirth pill for you. The Empress watched with satisfaction as motivation rekindled in her chosen vessel. The fire had returned to those eyes, a blaze that would consume any obstacle in its path. Golden rays of dawn painted the mountainside as Xiang Yu performed his morning ritual, the knife in his hand slicing through air with practiced precision. Following his established routine, he began the day with knife techniques, reserving sword practice for evening sessions. He had been training for barely an hour when an unexpected tremor disrupted his concentration. The ground beneath his feet shuddered rhythmically, each vibration stronger than the last. Xiang Yu's muscles tensed instinctively as he tightened his grip on his knife, adopting a defensive stance. His mind raced through possibilities, calculating threats and escape routes with practiced efficiency. Could it be that beast from the forest? He wondered, eyes narrowing as he scanned the tree line. But Li Yao said she killed it. A surge of indignation rose within him as he prepared to face whatever emerged from the undergrowth. Damn it, I've been scammed. I even went on a date where I nearly died. This is a total ripoff. His internal complaints continued unabated. If I survive this, I'm definitely suing for damages. The tremors intensified, foliage at the clearing's edge rustling violently before parting to reveal. Not a monstrous beast, but something equally astonishing, his junior sister, hauling an enormous boulder behind her. Xiang Yu's jaw dropped in stunned disbelief. What shocked him wasn't merely the boulder's immense size, but that Li Yao pulled it using raw physical strength rather than spiritual energy. Cultivators beyond the Qi-gathering realm typically didn't increase their physical power with each breakthrough one. They relied instead on Qi enhancement for such feats. Yet here was Li Yao, dragging several tons of solid rock using nothing but muscle. She must be at least at the 12th layer of body refining, he calculated silently, eyes widening as he reassessed his junior sister's capabilities. Suddenly remembering the knife still poised in his hand, Xiang Yu hastily concealed it and approached her with casual nonchalance. "Junior sister, what are you doing?" he inquired, striving for a conversational tone despite his amazement. "I was thinking of practicing my body refining," she replied cheerfully, and decided to train here with senior brother to keep him company. A smile tugged at Xiang Yu's lips, genuinely touched by her consideration. "How are you going to practice?" he asked, eyeing the massive boulder with curiosity. "How else? I'll just do some reps with this stone," she explained matter-of-factly. Xiang Yu's brow furrowed in confusion. "Is there a scripture like that?" he questioned, stroking his chin thoughtfully. Why hadn't he heard of such a straightforward method? If such an approach existed, he could have avoided those embarrassing movements entirely, simply lifting weights instead. Didn't you know? Body refining is all about refining the body, Li Yao elaborated with the patience of explaining something obvious. The scriptures just make the process easier. As long as you push your body to the limit, you will definitely advance. The revelation hit Xiang Yu like a physical blow. His legs buckled beneath him as he collapsed to the ground, mind reeling with implications. All those hours spent performing humiliating movements had been unnecessary. He could have just been lifting weights. "Senior brother, what's wrong?" Li Yao rushed to his side, concern evident in her voice. Everything suddenly clicked into place in Xiang Yu's mind. Why knife technique experience transferred to the Mountain Heart scripture? It wasn't transferring at all. The physical exertion from knife practice was advancing his body directly, and the scripture progressed because his body improved. "Just kill me," he groaned, face contorted with defeat. Li Yao hovered anxiously, never having seen her senior brother so utterly dejected. Realizing the source of his mortification, she attempted comfort. "Don't worry, senior brother. Only the master and I saw you," she reassured him, patting his back sympathetically. "And the master has probably already forgotten. I'm the only one with a memory crystal." Her voice trailed off as she realized her critical error. Xiang Yu's head snapped up, eyes narrowing dangerously as he processed her words. "What you mean by that? Senior brother, please stop. I was wrong." Li Yao's desperate screams echoed throughout the forest as she lay across Xiang Yu's lap, enduring his disciplinary spanking. How dare you make fun of your senior brother? He brought his hand down again, his voice tinged with righteous indignation. The memory crystals had been the final straw, recordings of his embarrassing mountain heart scripture practice preserved for posterity. I was wrong, she shouted dramatically, but internally her thoughts ran in an entirely different direction. Senior brother is being too assertive, she mused with unexpected delight. Little does he know, I'm into this sure. The Empress, privy to Li Yao's unfiltered thoughts, could only shake her head in profound disappointment. This girl was truly beyond salvation. Where are the memory crystals? Xiang Yu demanded, his voice stern with authority. Right here, Li Yao replied meekly, handing over her pouch with suspiciously little resistance. Xiang Yu examined the contents, his expression darkening as he witnessed recordings of himself performing those ridiculous mountain heart scripture movements. Without hesitation, he crushed the crystals in his palm, their fragments scattering across the forest floor. No! Li Yao cried out with theatrical despair, her performance worthy of a traveling opera troupe. Behind her convincing facade of devastation, however, laughter bubbled. It's unexpected that senior brother found out about the memory crystals, she thought smugly, but little does he know, I already have several copies stashed elsewhere. Concluding the punishment, Xiang Yu examined his reddened palm with mild surprise. Despite being the one administering discipline, his hand stung considerably, a testament to his junior sister's formidable physical cultivation. The girl was deceptively strong. He glanced at the destroyed crystals and his sobbing junior sister with satisfaction. At least I've destroyed all evidence, he thought with relief. What would happen if I became an important figure in the cultivation world someday, and these recordings leaked? How could I possibly maintain my dignity? Still, an unsettling feeling nagged at him, a vague suspicion that he wasn't being told the whole truth. It's probably just my imagination, he dismissed, returning his attention to training as he retrieved his knife. Before he could execute his first practice swing, Li Yao's voice interrupted his concentration. Senior brother, let's spar, she suggested. Her earlier tears mysteriously vanished. Xiang Yu considered the proposal with interest. Actual combat yielded substantially more experience points than solo practice, and sparring with his junior sister presented no real threat. A perfect opportunity for advancement without risk. All right, he agreed, completely unaware of the mistake he was making. Moments later, he found himself sprawled across the ground, struggling to rise after another punishing takedown. Li Yao wasn't using spiritual energy, but her technical mastery proved overwhelming nonetheless. She approached with mock concern, her voice dripping with false sympathy. Senior brother, should I stop? Xiang Yu couldn't bring himself to ask her to go easy on him. Is this revenge for spanking her earlier? He wondered bitterly as he pushed himself upright only to be knocked down again. Just you wait. When I'm invincible, I'll spank you daily. Mark my words. Li Yao stood triumphantly above him, admiring his angry expression with unexpected appreciation. Senior brother looks really cool when he's angry, she thought with satisfaction. This was rightful compensation for destroying her precious memory crystals. Despite having backups, the loss demanded retribution. Her treasures would feel wronged otherwise. The Empress was utterly bewildered by this twisted reasoning. What kind of logic is this? Is she even human? Li Yao dismissed these concerns entirely. She was helping her senior brother grow stronger through combat experience. What could possibly be more supportive? Such an exemplary junior sister she was. Yeah, you're the only one in the world who can do this. The Empress exhaled resignedly. Perhaps she had chosen the wrong vessel after all. Elder Guo watched his two disciples train with an approving smile, his weathered features softening as he observed their diligent efforts. This was how Mountain Heart Pavilion should be, alive with the energy of dedicated cultivation rather than the stagnant atmosphere of indolence that had previously permeated its halls. Now that I think about it, isn't it about time for lunch? He mused, stroking his long beard thoughtfully. As this realization dawned on him, his expression transformed dramatically. approval melting into indignation with startling speed. His bushy eyebrows descended like storm clouds over narrowed eyes. "Those brats!" he exclaimed, rising from his meditation cushion with unexpected agility. "How dare they play around all day, not even preparing a meal for their master? Where's the filial piety? Have I not taught them better?" The elder's complaints continued as he descended from his private chambers, each step accompanied by muttered grievances about ungrateful disciples and the burdens of masterhood. Several minutes later, the atmosphere in the dining hall had shifted considerably. Elder Guo sat at the head of the table, contentment radiating from him as he finished the last spoonful of soup with evident satisfaction. Across from him, both Xiang Yu and Li Yao sat in chastened silence, each sporting a small bump on their head, physical reminders of their master's displeasure at finding no meal prepared. Ahem! The elder cleared his throat deliberately, breaking the uncomfortable silence that had settled over their shared table. "It's okay if you play around occasionally, but don't go overboard and forget your duties." A faint blush colored his cheeks as he rose with affected dignity, clearly uncomfortable with the emotional display his hunger had provoked. Without waiting for responses, he vanished from his position, his departure as abrupt as his earlier appearance. "Oomph! Stupid old man." Li Yao seethed internally, rubbing the tender spot on her head with restrained anger. "If I didn't want to conceal my true cultivation level, I would have slapped you to death." "I'm not so sure about that." The Empress's voice resonated within her consciousness, carrying an undertone of amusement. "What do you mean?" Li Yao asked silently, her interest immediately piqued. "Is the old man also playing the pig to eat the tiger? Is he hiding his true strength?" "Well, not necessarily," the Empress replied cryptically, offering no further elaboration despite Li Yao's obvious curiosity. Li Yao rested her chin in her palm, contemplating her master with newfound wariness. She had always considered Elder Guo the laziest of them all, constantly admonishing his disciples against idleness while embodying that very quality. He rarely taught them directly, merely providing resources before retreating to his chambers for endless meditation. Sometimes he would wander into the forest and simply stare at nothing for hours, behavior she had attributed to senility or indolence. But the Empress's cryptic comment suggested there might be hidden depths to the old cultivator. Perhaps he wasn't as simple as she had assumed. Regardless, it changed nothing in her determination. Even if he was truly powerful, even if he was concealing unfathomable strength, she would still exact revenge for this undeserved bump on her head. When she grew sufficiently powerful, she would definitely bonk his head. When the Empress caught this petty thought, she couldn't help but chuckle at her vessel's stubborn nature. This girl truly was interesting, nursing even the smallest grudges with unwavering dedication. She seemed constitutionally incapable of accepting perceived wrongs, regardless of whether they came from loved ones or respected masters. The Empress's amusement gave way to wistful contemplation. If I had been the same back then, perhaps. Bonk as in hit, not the other one. Get your head out of the gutter. After the lunch break concluded, Xiang Yu and Li Yao returned to their training ground, the afternoon sun casting dappled shadows through the forest canopy. The Empress's voice echoed in Li Yao's mind, offering a suggestion that made her eyes light up with excitement. "Since you want to help your senior brother train, why don't you put on weight clothes when you spar with him? That way, you can both train simultaneously." Li Yao marveled at the brilliant simplicity of the idea. She hadn't even considered it herself. This was perfect. She could assist her senior brother while simultaneously advancing her own cultivation. It was the definition of efficiency, killing two birds with one stone. 3. If she counted practicing the new sword technique she was learning. Xiang Yu absorbed another powerful blow from Li Yao, his feet sliding backward across the packed earth. Unlike earlier encounters, he managed to stabilize his stance rather than tumbling helplessly to the ground. Though he couldn't muster a counterattack, the improvement was undeniable, progress worth celebrating in its own small way. As he regained his balance, a thought crystallized in his mind. His junior sister was truly a monster of talent. Even with weighted clothing hampering her movements and wielding a sword technique she wasn't yet familiar with. She still generated enough pressure to push him to his limits. She embodied everything a protagonist should be: extraordinary talent, unstoppable growth, and boundless potential. The realization settled over him like a comfortable truth. He was training with the main character of this cultivation world. From his private chambers atop the mountain, Elder Gua observed his disciples with quiet approval. His weathered fingers stroked his beard thoughtfully as he watched their training unfold below. After a while, he rose from his seat and departed the room, his footsteps carrying him toward the forest's edge. The elders stood silently at the riverbank, watching crystalline waters tumble over smooth stones with hypnotic rhythm. The Azure Cloud sect sprawled across an impressive mountain range, each pavilion occupying its own distinct peak. His gaze drifted upward, settling on the most imposing summit of all, Celestial Summit Peak, home to the sect leader and the highest point in the entire sect. As he contemplated the majestic scenery, a feminine voice broke through his reverie. "Are you still worried?" Elder Gua turned unhurriedly, his eyes meeting those of Huang Fengqi, the respected elder of Phoenix Ascension Pavilion, a branch of the sect specializing in bloodline exploration and martial physiques. "He's grown up now," she continued, approaching with measured steps. "He can take care of himself." "What are you talking about?" Elder Gua responded with feigned nonchalance. "I was just admiring the scenery." She studied him for a moment, her eyes narrowing slightly. "Is that so?" "Yes," he affirmed, his tone leaving no room for debate. "Uncle Master was—" she began, but before she could complete her thought, Elder Gua had already launched himself skyward. "I'm going to cultivate," he called back dismissively as he soared away. Huang Fengqi watched his retreating form with a resigned sigh. "This guy," she muttered before taking to the air herself, following in his wake. Soon after, the two elders sat together atop a secluded peak, sharing wine as they caught up on events. Huang Fengqi took a measured sip from her cup, appreciation evident in her expression. "Looks like your brewing skills have improved," she remarked. "Yeah, because someone keeps asking me to brew for them," he retorted dryly. "Does that mean I helped you improve?" she asked with unmistakable cheekiness. Elder Gua glanced at her, opened his mouth as if to issue a sharp retort, then simply sighed in defeat. "You?" He shook his head, abandoning whatever protest he'd planned to make. "Are those your disciples?" Huang Fengqi inquired, gesturing toward the distant figures still training below. "Yes," he confirmed, a hint of smugness creeping into his voice. "Jealous?" Without warning, Huang Fengqi stood abruptly, her eyes widening. "Wait, is that—" he? Elder Gua's face broke into an unabashed grin. "So you realized? It's just as you thought. He has trained a technique to the major success level." Seeing Huang Fengqi's astonished expression, he couldn't resist adding, "And it's only been a week since he started." His laughter echoed across the mountaintop, unrestrained and triumphant. "It seems I have an eye for disciples. My second disciple is a genius that appears once in a million years, and my first disciple is a comprehension genius." Huang Fengqi's expression shifted dramatically, all humor vanishing as intensity took its place. She grasped Elder Gua by his collar, shaking him slightly. "Are you sure about this?" she demanded, her voice dropping to an urgent whisper. Elder Gua wondered what had gotten into her, discomfort evident in his features. "Yeah, it's true. Would I lie to you about this?" He detached himself from her grip with a puzzled frown. "Elder Gua, no. Senior brother, you have to give me this disciple," she declared, her tone unervingly serious. "What are you talking about? Why would I give you my disciple?" he responded, eyeing her with growing suspicion. "This boy, if he really has as much comprehension as you said, then you should really give him to me," she insisted, leaning closer. "You're not making any sense," Elder Gua protested, pushing her away as she attempted to close the distance between them. "I knew you came here with bad intentions. I treat you well, and you want to poach my disciples? Why don't you just kill me and take the entire peak while you're at it?" "I can do that," she asked with exaggerated surprise, causing Elder Gua to leap backward defensively. I'm just kidding, she clarified with a laugh, producing an enormous scroll which she thrust in Elder Gua's hands. It was research I was doing. She tapped the scroll meaningfully. If what's written here is correct, then our sect will have another genius on the level of Li Yao. Elder Gua unfurled the scroll with undisguised skepticism. He assumed Huang Fengqi was simply drunk and spouting nonsense. Did million-year geniuses grow on trees now? Did she think him stupid enough to believe such claims? If creating geniuses were so simple, wouldn't everyone be one? But as his eyes traced the first few characters, his expression transformed from dismissive to astonished. He continued reading, each line deepening his shock until disbelief overwhelmed him. "How is this possible?" he uttered, his voice barely above a whisper. He looked up, meeting Huang Fengqi's eyes with newfound sobriety. "Are you sure this is true?" "Well, it hasn't been tested yet, but the chances are high," she replied. "If we can have a test subject." She allowed the implication to hang in the air, unfinished. "So," she continued after a moment, "what do you think? Will you give him to me?" Huang Fengqi gazed at Elder Gua with eyes twinkling like stars in a clear night sky, her expression comically pleading. "Please," she begged, leaning closer. Elder Gua firmly placed his palm against her shoulder, creating distance between them. "Don't come close to me. You reek of alcohol," he grumbled, settling back into his seated position with obvious discomfort. A weighty sigh escaped his lips as he gazed into the distance. "Even if I wanted to, I can't just give him to you," he explained, taking a measured sip from his wine cup. "He is my disciple, not something I picked up from the roadside." His eyes remained fixed on the training ground below, where his two disciples continued their sparring session, Xiang Yu repeatedly falling and rising with stubborn determination. Huang Fengqi observed Elder Gua's expression, recognizing the familiar contemplative look that had characterized her senior brother for centuries. She composed herself, settling down beside him with newfound restraint. "Does that mean that you'll let me have him if he agrees?" she inquired carefully, hope threading through her voice. Elder Gua's attention never wavered from the scene below. He watched as Xiang Yu tumbled to the ground once more, only to push himself upright with unwavering resolve. Memories flooded back, finding the boy in that destroyed village, bringing him to the mountain, raising him as his own despite his lack of talent. He had been genuinely pleased when Xiang Yu finally began cultivating, though disappointment lingered at the knowledge that without spiritual roots, the boy would never advance beyond the most rudimentary levels. But now, presented with this unexpected opportunity, wasn't it a master's sacred duty to pursue what was best for his disciple? To open doors rather than close them? To sacrifice personal attachment for genuine advancement? After lengthy consideration, Elder Gua offered a slight nod. "Sure," he conceded, the single word carrying the weight of profound sentiment. Huang Fengqi sprang to her feet with unbridled enthusiasm, her excitement barely contained. She had anticipated his eventual agreement, understanding the inner workings of his mind, yet his hesitation revealed more than he probably intended. Did he truly care for this disciple so deeply? Her gaze shifted to Xiang Yu, who once again rose after being knocked down. Something in his perseverance resonated with memories of the past. She could see shadows of the old senior brother in this young disciple's determination. Did her senior brother see himself in him? Was that why he had picked him up? Just as Uncle Master had done for him back then. She pushed these reflections aside, focusing on her immediate objective. Rising from her seat, she grasped Elder Gua's hand with infectious enthusiasm. "Then what are we waiting for? Let's go," she urged, already prepared to depart. Elder Gua remained unmoved, firmly anchoring her in place. "What's the hurry? Let the disciples practice. We'll go when it's dinner time," he stated with calm finality. "Dinner?" Disbelief colored Huang Fengqi's voice. "You eat mortal food?" The concept seemed utterly foreign. Cultivators at their advanced stage rarely bothered with such mundane sustenance. A smug expression transformed Elder Gua's weathered features. "Why wouldn't I when my disciple is such a nice cook?" he proclaimed with unmistakable pride. Huang Fengqi recognized that self-satisfied look immediately. There is again, she thought. Senior brother always needs to show off. Such a terrible habit. She shrugged dismissively, mentally scoffing at the notion. It probably isn't even that good. Her skepticism evaporated the moment Xiang Yu's culinary creation touched her lips. Before she even realized what was happening, her plate had been emptied of every morsel. Without a shred of her previous dignity, she thrust her empty plate forward, eyes wide with undisguised hunger, hoping for seconds. Li Yao extended her hand to Xiang Yu, helping him rise from the ground after their intense sparring session. Xiang Yu dusted himself off, glancing toward the horizon where the sun painted the sky in shades of amber and gold. It was approaching dinner time, and neither disciple particularly wanted another scolding from their master. Without exchanging words, they made their way to the kitchen, their steps synchronized. The kitchen welcomed them with familiar warmth as they fell into their established routine. Li Yao handled the preparatory tasks, washing vegetables, stoking the fire, arranging plates, while Xiang Yu focused on the main dish. Tonight, he was preparing his classic pork belly, a favorite that had earned appreciative silence from even their usually critical master. As his hands moved with practiced efficiency, slicing and seasoning with precise motions, Xiang Yu noted how his culinary skills had improved alongside his cultivation. The thought crossed his mind that perhaps he could accumulate cooking experience points as well, earning them through mastering recipes just as he did techniques. He dismissed the notion with a small smile, returning his attention to the simmering meat that released mouth-watering aromas throughout the pavilion. The pork belly transformed under his careful ministrations, skin crisping to golden perfection while the meat beneath remained tender and succulent. He arranged the finished dish with an artistry that would have impressed professional chefs from his previous world, presenting it just as footsteps announced the arrival of their master. This evening, however, Elderwood didn't arrive alone. A female cultivator accompanied him, her elegant robes bearing the distinctive embroidery of higher sect positions, her posture carrying the unmistakable dignity of cultivation authority. Xiang Yu couldn't suppress a smile. Had their perpetually solitary master finally found companionship? Li Yao clearly shared similar thoughts, her eyes lighting up with mischievous understanding as she cast their master a knowing look. "You brats, are you having inappropriate thoughts?" Elder Gua demanded, his bushy eyebrows drawing together in a thunderous frown. "How could we dare, master?" Xiang Yu replied with exaggerated innocence, his expression carefully schooled. "We were just wondering if the master had finally brought home a wife." The bold statement caused the female elder to blush slightly, color touching her dignified features. Li Yao, emboldened by Xiang Yu's example, leaned forward eagerly. "Master has always seemed so pure and dedicated to cultivation. I never imagined you actually." Her words trailed off as Eldergua fixed her with a glare so intense it practically lowered the temperature in the room. "Actually what?" he pressed, his smile promising punishment rather than amusement. Li Yao's courage evaporated instantly. "My apologies, I have misspoken," she declared, executing a formal bow with remarkable haste. Eldergua's mouth twitched with suppressed irritation. These disrespectful disciples. If he genuinely brought home a partner, wouldn't they embarrass him endlessly? He felt a sharp nudge from Huang Fengqi's elbow, prompting him to clear his throat. "Ahem. This is my junior sister, Huang Fengqi," he announced with forced composure. "She is the elder of Phoenix Ascension Pavilion." Huang Fengqi offered a friendly wave, her eyes appraising the two young disciples with evident curiosity. Xiang Yu gently pushed Li Yao's head downward as they both performed a respectful bow. "We greet the honorable Ant Master," they intoned with unexpected formality. Huang Fengqi's face brightened at their greeting. "Such nice children," she thought. "No need for such formality," she said aloud, her voice warm with genuine approval. "Just Ant Master will do." From the sidelines, Elder Gua observed this exchange with unconcealed shock. Where had this discipline suddenly materialized from? His disciples had never shown him such respect, constantly teasing and testing his patience. Who was the true master here? The two elders settled at the dining table, while Xiang Yu served an additional plate for their guest. Huang Fengqi regarded the dish with carefully measured expectations. Is this what that old fool was bragging about? She wondered skeptically. I suppose it does smell somewhat appealing. Taking her first bite with casual indifference, Huang Fengqi's expression transformed instantly. Flavors exploded across her palate. Complex, harmonious, expertly balanced. Each ingredient announced itself distinctly while contributing to a symphony of taste that defied her considerable experience. Was this the legendary god of cooking she'd heard whispered about in ancient texts? She moved to take another bite, only for her spoon to scrape against empty porcelain. Looking down in confusion, she discovered her plate completely clean, with no memory of having consumed its contents so rapidly. Elder Gua caught her bewildered expression and offered a smug smile as he continued enjoying his own portion. What did I say? Believe me now, he asked, his tone dripping with self-satisfaction. As he continued eating, something nagged at his awareness. Was today's meal even more exceptional than usual, or was his imagination embellishing the experience? He pondered this as he savored each mouthful. Noticing Huang Fengqi's hesitation to request more, Xiang Yu rose smoothly from his seat, serving her another generous portion without comment. Thanks, she murmured, slightly embarrassed by her evident enthusiasm. This time, she ate with deliberate slowness, savoring each bite with the appreciation it deserved, allowing the flavors to develop fully before taking another mouthful. When the meal concluded and dishes were being cleared, Huang Fengqi suddenly remembered her true purpose. She turned toward Xiang Yu, her expression shifting to something more serious. Xiang Yu, she began, her voice carrying unexpected weight. Would you like to take me as your master? The question landed in the room like a stone dropped into still water. Behind them, Li Yao, who had been helping wash dishes, lost her grip on a glass plate. It shattered against the floor, the crystalline sound punctuating the moment of perfect silence that followed Huang Fengqi's unexpected proposal. Fengqi's proposal hung in the air as Xiang Yu carefully gathered the shattered glass fragments from the floor. His movements were deliberate, buying precious seconds to collect his thoughts before responding. Aunt Master surely jests, he finally replied, his tone light but measured. Huang Fengqi rose from her seat, her posture straightening as she infused her words with unmistakable sincerity. No, I'm serious. If you join the Phoenix Ascension Pavilion, I'll make you a genius on the same level as your junior sister. The declaration sent ripples of shock through the room. Li Yao's eyes widened with astonishment. Could it truly be possible? Could her seemingly talentless senior brother actually become a genius of her caliber? The possibility both thrilled and unsettled her. Xiang Yu himself felt the weight of the offer pressing against his chest. His gaze flickered toward Elder Gua, searching for guidance, but his master's expression remained carefully neutral. The lack of surprise confirmed his suspicion. The two elders had already discussed this arrangement privately. As the implications of Huang Fengqi's offer unfurled in his mind, Xiang Yu carefully weighed the possibilities. Becoming a genius of Li Yao's caliber would undoubtedly accelerate his progress. His cultivation would advance by leaps rather than the steady increments he currently managed. Yet something deeper gave him pause. A heavy sigh escaped his lips as clarity emerged from his internal debate. His goal wasn't merely faster improvement. He already possessed a system for that purpose. What would accepting this offer truly mean? He would become like Li Yao, thrust into the spotlight, burdened with the sect's expectations, obligated to defend its honor at every turn. Such prominence would inevitably attract jealousy, resentment, and challenges. He'd become a target rather than an observer, forever entangled in protagonist-centered plots he desperately wished to avoid. The mathematics of the situation revealed an unfavorable exchange, temporary acceleration at the cost of permanent freedom. Even with talent matching Li Yao's, immediate invincibility remained a fantasy. In the long term, his system would compensate for any initial disadvantage, rendering the offered shortcut ultimately meaningless when weighed against the sacrifices required. "I'm sorry, but I cannot accept this," he stated with unexpected directness, accompanying his words with a respectful bow. Huang Fengqi's composure faltered momentarily, genuine surprise flashing across her features. How could anyone reject such an extraordinary opportunity? Elder Guo appeared equally baffled. He had always attributed Xiang Yu's earlier reluctance to cultivate to his lack of talent, never imagining the boy would actively decline the chance to acquire it. Perhaps he didn't understand his disciple as thoroughly as he had believed. Li Yao stared at her senior brother, momentarily stunned before her expression softened with understanding. This response, while seemingly incomprehensible to others, aligned perfectly with the Xiang Yu she knew. "Is there a reason?" Huang Fengqi inquired, her tone suggesting she suspected Xiang Yu might be misinterpreting her offer as some form of test, perhaps playing hard to get to demonstrate loyalty. "I already have a master, so it would be inappropriate if I took in another," Xiang Yu responded, his sentiments genuine, a direct reflection of the original Xiang Yu's unwavering loyalty. "Plus, I'm not that interested in cultivation, so it would be better if you gave this chance to someone who really wanted it." This latter justification was entirely fabricated. In truth, no one desired cultivation progress more desperately than he did. Yet he wanted advancement on his own terms, without sacrificing the precious anonymity that protected him from this world's dangerous narratives. Denying the opportunity represented a genuine loss, but one he would overcome through redoubled effort rather than compromise his fundamental survival strategy. Huang Fengqi stared at Xiang Yu, disbelief etched across her elegant features. Her worldview seemed momentarily shaken. Wasn't cultivation the universal pursuit? Didn't everyone harbor fantasies of soaring through limitless skies, wielding immense power, and perhaps rescuing damsels in distress? Yet here stood this peculiar young man, genuinely disinterested in an opportunity that countless cultivators would commit unspeakable acts to obtain. His sincerity was unmistakable. The Phoenix Ascension Elder found herself genuinely perplexed by this anomaly standing before her, a contradiction to everything she understood about human nature and ambition within the cultivation world. Elder Guo observed his disciple with newfound curiosity. The boy's loyalty touched something within him, a sentiment he hadn't expected to feel so keenly. Nevertheless, practicality compelled him to intervene. Allowing such an opportunity to slip away seemed unconscionable, regardless of the boy's peculiar resistance. "Xiang Yu, why don't you listen to your aunt, master?" Elder Guo urged, his tone measured but insistent. "Do you want to remain in your junior sister's shadow forever?" Xiang Yu's response came without hesitation, his voice steady and resolute. "If that's how it has to be, then so be it." He turned toward Li Yao, offering her a small smile that carried surprising warmth. "I'm sure junior sister won't mind me hiding from the sun in her shadow." Elder Guo released a heavy sigh. The boy's determination proved more substantial than anticipated. Perhaps a different approach might yield results? A more dramatic push seemed necessary to overcome this inexplicable reluctance. "It's because you already have a master, right?" Elder Guo proposed, his voice taking on a strategic edge. "Then if I'm no longer your master, will you take the offer?" Surprise flickered across Xiang Yu's features. The suggestion caught him entirely off guard. He hadn't imagined his master would consider such drastic measures. Was this actually possible? Could masters simply transfer disciples like commodities? The thought created immediate discomfort. This represented the worst possible outcome, severing his connection to Mountain Heart Pavilion while simultaneously thrusting him into the spotlight he desperately wished to avoid. His survival strategy would be thoroughly demolished from both directions simultaneously. Xiang Yu lowered himself into a formal bow, his voice carefully controlled despite his internal turmoil. "If the master doesn't want me anymore, then that's that." Both Elder Guo and Huang Fengqi's expressions shifted, a momentary triumph quickly shattered as Xiang Yu continued. "But even if that's the case, I still won't ever accept another master." The declaration landed like thunder in clear skies. Elder Gua and Huang Fengqi exchanged astonished glances, thoroughly confounded by such resolute rejection. What possible motivation could drive this extraordinary aversion? Elder Gua's weathered features softened as understanding gradually replaced his initial bewilderment. His posture relaxed as he nodded slowly. "It's okay, I understand." He turned toward Huang Fengqi, meeting his junior sister's confused expression with unexpected firmness. "I'm sorry, junior sister, but I'm also unwilling to part with my disciple." The decision crystallized within him with surprising clarity. If his disciple could demonstrate such unwavering conviction, rejecting even the chance to become a genius, how could he possibly consider sending him away? In all his centuries of cultivation, he had accepted only 2 disciples into his care. Both had secured places in his heart, despite his outward gruffness. His philosophy remained steadfast. If a disciple wished to depart, he would offer no resistance. But if they chose to remain, he would never force them away. Huang Fengqi exhaled deeply upon hearing Elder Gua's words, her shoulders dropping slightly in resignation. It seemed this peculiar disciple would remain beyond her reach. Still, she refused to abandon such a perfect test subject entirely. Perhaps there was another approach. Although having him as her disciple would have made things easier, it could still work even if they weren't master and disciple. "It's okay if you don't want to become my disciple," she said, her voice shifting to a more conversational tone. "But I still believe you're the ideal candidate for this opportunity." Her posture straightened as she adopted the measured cadence of someone making a compelling business proposal. "To be honest, there's a martial physique I've been researching for quite some time," she continued, leaning forward slightly. "Unlocking this particular physique requires mastering numerous techniques to the perfect level." Her eyes fixed on Xiang Yu with unmistakable interest. "I've heard from your master that you achieved major success in a technique in merely a week." Li Yao's eyes widened at this revelation, genuine surprise washing over her delicate features. "You didn't notice?" the Empress asked within her consciousness. "Your senior brother's comprehension ability is truly exceptional, not inferior to yours in the slightest." The voice elaborated, causing Li Yao's astonishment to deepen further. It seemed her senior brother possessed genuine genius that had somehow escaped her attention. "Is this martial physique actually real?" Li Yao mentally inquired of the Empress. "Well, it does exist in theory, but since no one has ever successfully obtained it, so it's difficult to say," came the measured response. "Why has no one ever managed to acquire it?" Li Yao pressed, curiosity piqued. "The ancient manuals specify that one must master numerous techniques to unlock the physique, but they're frustratingly vague about the exact quantity required," the Empress explained. "Many cultivators have attempted this path only to abandon it in frustration. Most eventually conclude their time is better spent on conventional cultivation rather than endlessly practicing techniques for a physique that might prove mythical." "I see," Li Yao thought, understanding dawning in her mind. This method hardly seemed reliable. How many years would her senior brother need to dedicate to technique mastery, with no guarantee of eventual success? The realization settled heavily upon her. Her initial hope that this opportunity might elevate her senior brother appeared misplaced. The responsibility remained hers alone. She would need to redouble her efforts, pushing her cultivation even harder to obtain that precious rebirth pill for him. "With your remarkable comprehension abilities, you could master techniques at an extraordinary pace," Huang Fengqi continued, elaborating on the potential benefits with measured enthusiasm. After completing her detailed explanation, she fixed Xiang Yu with an expectant gaze. "So what do you think? Does this interest you?" she asked, her voice carrying a note of hopeful anticipation. Xiang Yu descended into deep contemplation, weighing the implications of Huang Fengqi's proposal with methodical precision. If her claims about this martial physique proved legitimate, the opportunity was undeniably enticing. With his system's exponential growth mechanism, mastering multiple techniques to perfect level seemed entirely feasible. Though he had yet to achieve perfect mastery in any discipline, he calculated that his knife technique would likely reach that threshold within a month at most. The potential reward was extraordinary. A martial physique would fundamentally transform his cultivation journey, addressing his most critical limitation. Unlike his current mortal body, a martial physique could not lack spiritual roots. This represented a comprehensive solution, not merely an enhancement, but a complete rebirth as a cultivator capable of advancing through all realms. The two-in-one package would finally place true cultivation within his grasp. Despite the temptation, Xiang Yu maintained his strategic caution. Accepting without parameters would surrender control over his carefully constructed life. After several moments of calculated analysis, he raised his eyes to meet Huang Fengqi's expectant gaze. "I can agree, but with some conditions," he stated, his tone measured but resolute. Privately, he reasoned that rejection of his terms would be inconsequential. He had already identified the fundamental approach. If necessary, he could independently pursue technique mastery until unlocking the martial physique through his own efforts, albeit at a slower pace. Huang Fengqi's expression brightened perceptibly at his conditional acceptance. She had anticipated some form of bargaining, resources, positions, privileges, typical requests she could accommodate despite their potential complications. "Of course. What conditions do you have in mind?" she inquired, barely concealing her eagerness. Xiang Yu spoke with deliberate clarity, enumerating his requirements. "First, complete confidentiality. No one beyond this room should know about this arrangement. Second, I maintain my status as Elder Gua's disciple within Mountain Heart Pavilion. Third, no additional responsibilities will be assigned to me as a result of this undertaking. Fourth, I retain exclusive authority to select which techniques I'll practice. Fifth, I train independently without external supervision or assistance. Sixth, I will not leave the pavilion for this purpose." His expression remained resolute as he concluded, "These terms are non-negotiable and cannot be modified. If any cannot be fulfilled, I must regretfully decline this opportunity." Huang Fengqi's mouth fell open in undisguised astonishment. She had braced herself for extravagant demands, spirit stones, magical treasures, privileged positions. Yet his requests were shockingly modest. A smile of understanding curved her lips as realization dawned. While countless disciples craved recognition and acclaim, this peculiar young man actively shunned attention. He likely feared that acknowledgement of his genius would burden him with responsibilities and expectations he had no desire to shoulder. How refreshingly contrary to the typical cultivation mindset. Her smile widened into genuine warmth. These conditions aligned perfectly with her own research interests. Maintaining secrecy would prevent external interference with their experiment. "Deal," she declared enthusiastically, extending her hand toward him. Xiang Yu accepted the gesture, sealing their arrangement with a firm handshake. From the sidelines, Li Yao observed the exchange with mixed emotions. While this avenue offered some promise, however remote, she remained committed to her own solution. The uncertain timeline of this experimental approach hardly suited her temperament. She would continue pursuing the rebirth pill with unwavering determination, unwilling to stake her senior brother's future on such theoretical possibilities. Elder Gua surveyed the scene with quiet satisfaction, pleased that a mutually beneficial arrangement had materialized from what had initially appeared to be an impasse. "Does this mean I'll be visiting frequently?" Huang Fengqi inquired, her tone deliberately casual. Elder Gua snorted, "Humph. Don't think I don't know your true motives. You're simply angling for more opportunities to sample our cuisine," he accused with a penetrating stare. "What? How could you suggest such a thing?" she protested with exaggerated innocence. "I merely wish to monitor my martial nephew's progress." After finishing dinner, Xiang Yu and Li Yao returned to their training ground, the evening air cool against their skin. This time, Xiang Yu wielded his sword, its weight now familiar in his grip. His focus sharpened as Li Yao approached, her movements fluid and purposeful. She swung her blade in a graceful arc, forcing Xiang Yu to react quickly. He barely twisted away from the strike, the edge of her sword passing close enough for him to feel the displaced air. Seizing what seemed like an opening, he attempted a counterattack, lunging forward with determination, only to find himself promptly knocked to the ground. As he pushed himself back up, dust clinging to his robes, Xiang Yu reflected that despite accepting Ant Master Huang's offer, little had fundamentally changed. He still needed to master numerous techniques to reach the perfect level, a path he had already intended to follow given his lack of spiritual roots. The only meaningful difference was his newfound ability to request specific techniques from his Ant Master. As long as he demonstrated satisfactory progress, she would continue providing both techniques and resources. Of course, these offerings remained limited to what she could personally contribute. With the experiment's confidential nature, they couldn't access the sect's broader resources, but this hardly concerned Xiang Yu. With his system's doubling function, he'd become invincible regardless of external support. Resources were merely secondary considerations. He managed to push Li Yao back an inch during their exchange, a small smile of satisfaction forming on his lips. His moment of pride proved devastatingly premature as Li Yao simply grabbed his sword with her bare hand, halting his attack completely. Is that even allowed? He wondered, staring at her in disbelief. Can I give up? He asked nervously. Li Yao's smile contained no mercy. Of course not, she replied cheerfully. If you give up now, you'll lose all your momentum. Without warning, she lifted him by his sword and threw him over her shoulder. Xiang Yu landed hard on his back, the impact knocking the breath from his lungs. He stared up at the stars scattered across the night sky, their distant light offering no sympathy for his predicament. Li Yao's face appeared above him, concern replacing her earlier playfulness. "Senior brother, are you okay?" she asked, extending her hand while examining him for injuries. "I'm fine," he assured her, accepting her assistance. "Let's continue." He rose to his feet, determination outweighing discomfort as they resumed their relentless training. Their sparring continued until the familiar blue screen materialized before Xiang Yu's eyes. Calculating settlement. Recognizing the timing, Xiang Yu suggested they conclude for the day. "Let's stop here," he proposed, receiving Li Yao's agreement. They sheathed their weapons and returned to their respective quarters. In his room, Xiang Yu stretched out on his simple bed, eyes fixed on the system notifications hovering before him. Calculation complete. Enlightenment. Low 1/1000. Mountain Heart Scripture. Second layer 157/200 plus 8/200. Basic Knife Technique. Major Success 35/400 plus 30/400. Basic Sword Technique. Minor Success 70/200 plus 50/200. Cook. 9th grade 2 out of 100 plus 2 out of 100. Experience points doubled. Cook. 9th grade 2 out of 100. 9th grade 4 out of 100. Basic Sword Technique. Minor Success 70/200. Minor Success 140/200. Basic Knife Technique. Major Success 35 out of 400. Major Success 70/400. Mountain Heart Scripture. Second layer 157/200. Third layer 0/300. Enlightenment. Low 1/1000. Low 2/1000. Next settlement. 23 hours, 59 minutes, and 59 seconds. Xiang Yu's eyes widened as he noticed a new addition to his status screen, a cooking stat. The unexpected development brought a smile to his face. He had certainly felt his culinary skills improving with each meal he prepared, but hadn't anticipated the system would actually recognize it as a formal skill. In this cultivation world, professions extended beyond the path of the warrior cultivator. Pill refiners, artifact crafters, formations masters, all were respected paths in their own right. Cooking, too, held its place among these esteemed professions. While 9th grade wasn't particularly impressive in the grand hierarchy, it represented tangible acknowledgement of his efforts. If the whole cultivation thing doesn't work out, Seems I really could open a restaurant, he mused, finding genuine comfort in having a backup plan. The thought of becoming a celebrated chef rather than a powerful cultivator held its own peculiar appeal, certainly less dangerous than the typical cultivator's journey. His attention shifted to the enlightenment stat displayed prominently in the settlement screen. Though he felt a twinge of disappointment that such intensive practice had yielded minimal growth, the reality made sense. If natural talent were easy to cultivate, geniuses would be commonplace rather than rare exceptions. Still, the system's ability to double even this attribute filled him with profound satisfaction. Though the increase appeared modest, merely from 1 to 2 points, he could already sense the difference. Low-grade techniques that had previously felt just beyond his grasp now seemed potentially manageable. The sensation of doubling natural talent differed markedly from technique advancement, a euphoric rush that transcended ordinary progress. This wasn't merely becoming stronger. This was changing what cultivation society considered immutable fate. Examining his combat techniques, Xiang Yu nodded with appreciation. His knife technique had increased by 30 points, while his sword technique jumped by a remarkable 50. The accelerated progress confirmed what cultivation manuals had always stressed. Actual combat yielded results far superior to isolated practice. With such rapid improvement, being pummeled by his junior sister suddenly seemed a worthwhile investment. A mischievous grin spread across his face as he contemplated their future training sessions. He hoped she wouldn't disappoint him. She should hit him even harder tomorrow. When he eventually achieved invincibility, he would certainly repay her for this dedicated care. It wasn't pettiness. He was simply being considerate. Such a thoughtful senior brother he was. In her own quarters, Li Yao suddenly shivered while removing her training clothes. She paused, momentarily concerned. Was she catching a cold? How could that possibly happen with her advanced body refining cultivation? Dismissing the inexplicable sensation, she quickly slipped beneath her bed coverings and settled in for the night. Meanwhile, Xiang Yu continued analyzing his progress. His sword technique stood at 140 points, well positioned to breach the next level after tomorrow's reset. Since he couldn't exploit experience overflow, focusing exclusively on knife technique tomorrow would maximize his system's efficiency. Finally, his eyes moved to the Mountain Heart scripture. Though it had gained 8 points, this advancement was essentially wasted since the scripture had already been primed for breakthrough. Nevertheless, satisfaction washed over him as he confirmed his advancement to the 3rd layer, a corresponding breakthrough in his body refining realm. With measured anticipation, he summoned his complete status screen. As Xiang Yu examined his updated status screen, he nodded with quiet acceptance. Just as he had anticipated, the exchange rate had shifted once again to 10-1. Though potentially discouraging, he remained undeterred. Progress was progress, regardless of the increasing difficulty curve. The steady advancement of his stats confirmed his path was working, even if the pace felt glacial at times. Still, he mused while absently rubbing his sore muscles, there must be a way to accelerate this. A sudden inspiration struck him like lightning. His junior sister always trained with weighted clothing, simultaneously developing her techniques and body refinement. The dual-purpose approach was elegantly efficient. Why hadn't he thought of this sooner? With weighted clothes creating constant resistance, every movement would require additional effort, potentially amplifying his technique improvement. The added pressure might even accelerate his progress beyond the standard rate. There was just one glaring problem. He already struggled against Li Yao at peak performance. How would he fare when deliberately handicapping himself? Xiang Yu weighed the consequences carefully. A few extra bruises seemed a small price to pay for accelerated cultivation. His lips curved into a wry smile as he mentally apologized to his future self. Sorry, this sacrifice is for the greater good of our survival. The decision made, he allowed himself to sink into his simple bed. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but for now, rest was essential. Dawn broke with remarkable swiftness, the mountain air crisp and invigorating as Xiang Yu faced Li Yao in their training clearing. The weighted garments he'd acquired pressed against his frame, making even the simplest movements require conscious effort. Li Yao extended her hand, helping him rise after another punishing takedown. Her eyebrows lifted with genuine surprise. "I hadn't expected senior brother to also put on weighted clothes," she remarked, curiosity evident in her voice. Xiang Yu dusted himself off, adjusting to the unfamiliar heaviness encumbering his limbs. "Just thought it would be more convenient to train both body refining and techniques simultaneously," he explained, settling back into his stance as they resumed their sparring session. From his private chambers, Elder Gua observed his disciples with undisguised pride. Their dedication manifested in every movement, every strike, every moment of focused determination. "Your disciples are really dedicated," Huang Fengqi commented, seated comfortably beside him as she watched the training unfold below. "They are," Elder Gua nodded, satisfaction evident in his tone. His approval lasted only moments before suspicion crept in. "Also, what are you doing here?" he asked, eyebrows furrowing. Huang Fengqi's melodious laughter filled the chamber. "Come on, senior brother, don't be like that. I just wanted to keep you company and watch my martial nephew's training," she explained, her eyes twinkling with mischief. "Don't you have your own pavilion to look after?" he pressed, skepticism clear in his weathered features. "I do, but it's so boring staying there by myself all day," she replied with a casual wave of her hand. Don't think I don't know what you're planning," Elder Gua grumbled, closing his eyes to resume his cultivation. Huang Fengqi observed him with an amused smile before settling into her own meditative posture. In the training ground, Xiang Yu leaned heavily against a tree, sweat drenching his garments as he struggled to catch his breath. The weighted clothes transformed even basic movements into torture. How did his junior sister make it look so effortless? Despite the agony, he could feel improvements taking root within his body, subtle changes that promised future strength. The sensation alone made the suffering worthwhile. Wiping his brow, he pushed himself away from the tree and charged at Li Yao once more. He targeted her left leg, which he had carefully observed to be her least guarded area. Too late, he realized his mistake. What appeared to be vulnerability was merely bait in a well-crafted trap. Li Yao smiled as he took the bait, lifting her leg before stomping down with such tremendous force that the resulting wind pressure alone sent Xiang Yu stumbling backward. "Senior brother, your movements are really easy to read," she observed, approaching to check on him as he struggled to rise. The criticism struck deeper than any physical blow. He wasn't a natural fighter and lacked fundamental battle instinct, relying instead on technical knowledge and basic intuition, a potentially fatal flaw when facing experienced combatants. Gratitude washed over him as he considered how fortunate he was to have such a genius junior sister as a training partner. She wasn't merely helping him refine techniques. She was forging true combat awareness that couldn't be developed through isolated practice. Battle instinct was something that could only emerge from actual confrontation. Without genuine combat experience, he might eventually reach tremendous power, yet still fall to a weaker but more experienced opponent, a tragic end to his journey toward invincibility. After exchanging several more bruising exchanges with Li Yao, the sun reached its zenith, signaling lunchtime. They immediately halted their training, both moving with purpose toward the kitchen. Even through the exhaustion, Xiang Yu felt a certain satisfaction. Every difficulty overcome brought him one step closer to his ultimate goal of survival. After Xiang Yu arranged the final dish on the table, completing the artfully prepared meal, his master entered the dining area. To no one's surprise, Elder Guo was once again accompanied by Huang Fengqi. The two disciples exchanged knowing glances, their eyes sparkling with poorly concealed speculation about the elder's relationship. Elder Gua immediately caught their suggestive looks. His bushy eyebrows furrowed in displeasure before he swiftly bonked both their heads with surprising accuracy, leaving them nursing small bumps and muttering apologies. "You brats and your wild imaginations," he grumbled, taking his seat with affected dignity. Huang Fengqi couldn't suppress a smile at the scene. There was something genuinely heartwarming about the dynamics between her senior brother and his disciples, not the formal master-disciple relationship often seen in cultivation sects, but something more resembling a real family. The casual affection underlying even their disciplinary moments spoke volumes about their bond. As everyone began enjoying the meal, appreciative silence filled the room, interrupted only by occasional murmurs of approval. The flavors seemed to dance across their palates, each bite more satisfying than the last. Li Yao finally broke the comfortable quiet. "Senior brother, are you practicing in secret? Your cooking seems to be improving every time I taste it," she observed, savoring another mouthful with evident delight. Eldergwin nodded in agreement, stroking his beard thoughtfully. The boy's culinary skills were indeed advancing at a remarkable pace. If this trajectory continued, he might genuinely develop into a professional chef of significant renown. Xiang Yu merely smiled at the compliment, offering no hint about his newly recognized status as a ninth-grade cook. "I just improved by cooking for all of you," he replied modestly, diverting attention by serving another portion to Huang Fengqi, who accepted it with poorly disguised eagerness. When the meal concluded and dishes were cleared away, Huang Fengqi leaned forward with purpose. "Since we agreed to carry out the experiment, is there any technique you're particularly interested in?" she inquired, reaching into her spatial pouch. With a flourish, she produced numerous technique manuals, arranging them carefully across the table. The collection, while not extensive, represented a respectable variety of cultivation methods, each bound in different colored covers with intricate patterns denoting their various applications. "For now, I only have access to basic and low-grade techniques. You can select from these," she explained, gesturing toward the spread. "I'll find higher-level techniques for you soon," she added, her eyes gleaming with genuine anticipation for their experimental journey. Xiang Yu approached the table with measured steps, his eyes scanning over the array of technique manuals spread before him. Each leather-bound manual promised different paths to power, their covers embossed with distinct patterns that hinted at their contents. He methodically examined each one: low-grade iron body technique, basic tiger claw, low-grade stone-breaking fist, basic cloud step, and many others. As he assessed the collection, Xiang Yu couldn't help but notice that many weren't particularly impressive. His fingers hovered over the basic cloud step, manual momentarily, appreciating its value. A movement technique would significantly enhance his primary survival strategy. Fleeing was, after all, his top priority. Yet the low-grade iron body technique caught his attention as well. While escape remained paramount, avoiding injury ranked nearly as high on his list of concerns. The technique classifications tipped the scales. Since iron body was classified as low-grade while cloud step was merely basic, the former represented greater potential value. Xiang Yu suspected Huang Fengqi was deliberately conservative with her initial offerings, likely wanting to verify his comprehension abilities firsthand before committing more valuable resources. She would probably provide additional techniques once he demonstrated mastery of this one. Decision made, he selected the iron body manual, lifting it from the table with careful hands. "You have a good eye," Eldergwin remarked, unable to contain his approval. "This is the best technique among this collection. Though it's classified as low-grade, it's not far from achieving mid-grade status." The elder's voice carried unmistakable pride as he continued. "If you master this technique to the perfect stage, combined with peak body refining, you should be able to withstand at least one punch from a cultivator at peak qi refining stage." Xiang Yu felt a surge of satisfaction. His assessment had been correct. The technique offered substantial defensive capabilities that aligned perfectly with his survival-focused approach. After the meal concluded, the elders departed, leaving the disciples to resume their training regimen. As they reached their familiar clearing, Li Yao paused before they could begin sparring. Her delicate hand disappeared into her pouch, rummaging intently for several moments before withdrawing another manual. "Here," she offered, extending the manual towards Xiang Yu. The cover displayed the title, Mid-Grade Phantom Footwork, in elegant script. "I noticed you were interested in that movement technique," she explained, a faint blush coloring her cheeks. "You can have this one instead. It's superior to what was offered. I obtained it from the dean after dealing with him." Her words carried a mixture of embarrassment and pride. Xiang Yu accepted the manual, a genuine smile warming his features. His junior sister truly looked out for him, even when he hadn't explicitly asked. He silently reflected that she probably misunderstood his capabilities, likely assuming his comprehension talent matched her own. She couldn't know about his system or its limitations. Still, he gratefully accepted her gift. Even if mastering a mid-grade technique seemed beyond his current abilities, who could say for certain? With his system's exponential growth and the steady increase in his enlightenment stat, perhaps such an achievement wasn't entirely impossible. Xiang Yu exchanged several rapid blows with Li Yao before strategically backstepping, creating essential distance between them. His chest heaved as he drew in a deep breath, muscles burning pleasantly beneath the weight of his training clothes. After a moment's recovery, he charged forward again, his determination unwavering despite the countless defeats he'd already suffered today. As he closed the gap between them, satisfaction warmed his thoughts. The low-grade iron body technique had proven an excellent choice. Its practice methods aligned perfectly with his weighted clothing regimen, creating natural synergy between his different training approaches. Simultaneously, though he harbored minimal expectations for the mid-grade phantom footwork, he deliberately incorporated its basic movements into his combat patterns against Li Yao. This meant he was effectively practicing 3 distinct techniques concurrently, and adding the Mountain Heart scripture made it 4. He was truly maximizing every moment, optimizing his advancement through pure efficiency. His knife met Li Yao's sword with a metallic clash, sparks briefly illuminating their determined expressions. Despite his improved technique, she effortlessly redirected his attack, her superior skill allowing her to knock his knife from his grip with a precise flick of her wrist. A confident smile graced her features as she swung toward him, blade tracing a gleaming arc through the air. Yet Xiang Yu's reflexes had improved considerably. He dropped into a fluid roll beneath her sword, his body moving with surprising agility despite the weighted clothing. His hand found his fallen knife, fingers closing around the hilt with practiced precision. As he began to rise, the cool touch of steel pressed gently against his neck. Li Yao stood above him, sword perfectly positioned for a killing blow. "Too slow," she remarked simply, withdrawing her blade to allow him to stand. While Xiang Yu dusted himself off, Li Yao observed him with thoughtful appreciation. Her senior brother demonstrated remarkable adaptability. Though his technical skills improved more gradually than she'd expected, he possessed a natural combat intelligence that prevented him from repeating mistakes. He'd even anticipated her counter this time, executing that dodge with surprisingly good timing. His only significant limitation was speed, a factor largely determined by cultivation level. If he ever reached higher realms, she genuinely doubted she would remain his superior for long. A mischievous smile tugged at her lips as this thought crystallized. Since that eventuality remained distant, shouldn't she take full advantage of her current superiority? After all, she was absolutely certain he would torment her mercilessly once he surpassed her. What was wrong with collecting some advance compensation? Within her consciousness, the Empress observed Li Yao's twisted reasoning with a resigned sigh. She was gradually becoming accustomed to her vessel's peculiar thought processes. Who else would actively seek revenge for hypothetical future offenses that hadn't even occurred yet? Their sparring continued uninterrupted until evening descended upon the mountain, shadows lengthening across their training ground. They eventually departed to prepare dinner, returning to the pavilion's communal kitchen with comfortable familiarity. Tonight, Huang Fengqi was absent, leaving just the master and his 2 disciples to share the meal. After enjoying Xiang Yu's delicious cooking, they separated to their respective evening routines. Elder were returning to his chambers for cultivation, while the 2 disciples made their way back to the training grounds. Xiang Yu charged at Li Yao with determination burning in his eyes, his weighted clothes making each step a labor of pure will. Despite his calculated approach, she effortlessly sidestepped his attack, her movements fluid like water around stone. With a casual flick of her wrist, she sent him sprawling onto the packed earth of their training ground. Lying there, Xiang Yu felt exhaustion seeping into every fiber of his being. His muscles screamed in protest, begging for respite from this relentless punishment. Was he pushing himself too far? The weighted clothing, combined with simultaneous technique practice, extracted a brutal toll on his mortal frame. But then, the thought of experience points flooded his mind. The precious resource his system would double tonight. Each painful collision, every humiliating defeat, all of it would transform into pure cultivation progress. The realization acted like a restorative elixir, washing away his fatigue in an instant. Li Yao watched with puzzled fascination as her senior brother sprang back to his feet, renewed vigor evident in his stance. What strange force drove him? Most would have remained down after such punishment, yet something sparked in his eyes that burned away weakness. Whatever internal fire fueled him seemed to grow stronger with each defeat, a paradoxical phenomenon she couldn't quite comprehend. She launched forward without warning, her sword cutting through air with lethal precision. Xiang Yu, operating on instinct rather than conscious thought, bent his upper body forward in a deep bow. The blade whistled overhead, disturbing his hair as it passed within millimeters of his scalp. Time seemed to slow as Xiang Yu recognized the precious opening before him. Li Yao's follow-through had momentarily compromised her defensive posture. Without hesitation, he drove his knife upward from his bowed position, blade angling toward her exposed midsection. Satisfaction bloomed in his chest as Li Yao's eyes widened slightly. He caught her off guard. A rare moment of genuine surprise crossed her delicate features. "I've got her this time," he thought, victory tantalizingly close. The triumphant smile had barely formed on his lips when blinding pain erupted across his temple. Li Yao's serene face greeted him as his vision refocused, her gentle smile belying the devastating counterattack she'd just executed. With masterful control, she'd redirected her momentum, using her sword's hilt to strike his head with pinpoint accuracy. "That was a nice one," she complimented, extending her hand to help him stand. Xiang Yu accepted her assistance, breathing heavily as he rose. "Yeah, nice one," he acknowledged internally, "but I wasn't even able to touch you." The outcome was understandable, though, he reasoned. Though Li Yao refrained from using spiritual energy, her body refining cultivation likely exceeded his by at least 10 layers. Every practitioner knew that beyond the 10th layer of body refining, each subsequent level brought exponential improvements in physical capabilities. Strength, speed, durability, and reflexes all increased dramatically. The gap between them wasn't merely skill, but fundamental physical development. Their sparring continued uninterrupted, a dance of attack and defense beneath the watchful mountain sky, until the familiar system notification materialized before Xiang Yu's eyes. Calculating settlement. "Let's call it a day," Xiang Yu suggested, noting the system's timing. Li Yao nodded in agreement, and they exchanged cordial goodnights before retiring to their respective quarters. Alone in his room, Xiang Yu studied the expanded notification hovering before him. Calculation complete. Enlightenment. Low 3/1000 plus 1/1000. Battle instinct 1/100,000. Mountain Heart Scripture, 3rd layer, 20/300 plus 20/300. Low-grade Iron Body Technique, beginner, 50/100 plus 50/100. Basic Knife Technique, major success, 120/400 plus 50/400. Basic Sword Technique, minor success, 140/200. Cook, 9th grade, 8 out of 100. plus 4 out of 100. Experience points doubled. Cook, 9th grade, 8 out of 100. 9th grade, 16 out of 100. Basic Sword Technique, minor success, 140/200. Intermediate, 0/300. Basic Knife Technique, major success, 120/400. Major success, 240/400. Low-grade iron body technique. Beginner, 50 out of 100. Minor success, 0 out of 200. Mountain Heart Scripture. Third layer, 20/300. Third layer, 40/300. Battle Instinct. 1/100, 000. 2/100, 000. Enlightenment. Low, 3/1000. Low, 6/1000. Next settlement. 23 hours, 59 minutes, and 59 seconds. A wave of euphoria washed over Xiang Yu as his enlightenment doubled, the sensation even more intense than the previous night. The rush of expanded comprehension flooded his consciousness, bringing with it subtle insights that sharpened his understanding of cultivation principles. Each doubling seemed to intensify the pleasurable sensation, as if his mind was being remolded into something greater than its original design. I could definitely get addicted to this, he thought, savoring the lingering mental clarity. His attention focused on the enlightenment stat, noting with satisfaction that it had increased by 1 point before the doubling effect. What had triggered this natural growth? He hadn't specifically trained comprehension today, not that he knew how to. After a moment's reflection, realization dawned. He had attempted to study the mid-grade phantom footwork technique Li Yao had given him, though the technique hadn't appeared in his status screen, suggesting he couldn't yet effectively practice it. The mere act of studying advanced material seemed to stretch his comprehension capabilities. This discovery opened intriguing possibilities. Perhaps he could accelerate his enlightenment growth by regularly exposing himself to techniques beyond his current level, even if actual mastery remained temporarily beyond reach. Shifting his analysis to the Mountain Heart Scripture, he noted the impressive 20-point increase. Accounting for the 3 points already present before today's training, he'd gained 17 new points. 5 had transferred from his knife technique through the established conversion mechanism, but the remaining 12, those had come purely from training with weighted clothing. The evidence confirmed his theory that weight training directly contributed to body refining progress. His knife technique had improved dramatically, 50 entire points in a single day. The weighted clothing had transformed standard practice into accelerated advancement. Even more remarkable was his newly acquired iron body technique, which had also gained 50 points before doubling to achieve minor success in just 1 day's practice. Such rapid mastery of a low-grade technique suggested his comprehension ability was functioning at peak efficiency. With his knife technique already at 240 points out of 400, it would certainly break through after tomorrow's reset. This realization shaped his training strategy for the coming day. He would focus exclusively on swordsmanship, since it had just reset to intermediate stage. Of course, this singular focus wouldn't prevent him from simultaneously practicing iron body, attempting the mid-grade movement technique, and continuing his Mountain Heart Scripture cultivation. The beauty of his training regimen lay in its layered efficiency, multiple techniques advancing through complementary movements. Examining his cooking skill, Xiang Yu noted it had advanced to 16 points. Though he couldn't immediately identify tangible improvements, certain culinary knowledge had materialized in his mind: flavor combinations, temperature control techniques, presentation principles. The true extent of his progress would only reveal itself when he prepared tomorrow's meals. Just as he prepared to dismiss the status screen, an unfamiliar stat caught his attention. Battle Instinct had appeared, an entirely new attribute he hadn't possessed before. Unlike his other stats, this one displayed no distinct levels, merely a single progression bar with a staggering cap of 100,000 points. Did this represent pure combat intuition? The ability to instinctively choose optimal actions during confrontation without conscious calculation? A grin spread across his face as he contemplated the implications. Without level thresholds to reset progress, this stat would compound continuously through his system's doubling function. Though the current value seemed minuscule compared to its potential maximum, exponential growth guaranteed rapid advancement once momentum built. Even now, having doubled from 1 to 2, He couldn't perceive any tangible difference in his capabilities. "I'll test it properly tomorrow," he thought as exhaustion finally claimed him, his body sinking into the simple bed. Despite the day's grueling exertion, satisfaction permeated his consciousness as he drifted toward sleep. The mountain dawn painted the training ground in hues of gold and amber as Xiang Yu and Li Yao faced each other, their silhouettes sharp against the rising sun. As always, both disciples had risen with the first light, drawn to their daily ritual of combat with unwavering dedication. Xiang Yu adjusted his grip on the sword, its weight now familiar in his hands. As he moved through his forms, he noticed something different, a subtle shift in his awareness. His movements flowed with newfound fluidity, each stance transitioning into the next with improved precision. More remarkably, he found himself anticipating Li Yao's attacks moments before they came, his body reacting to signals his conscious mind barely registered. Li Yao lunged forward, her blade tracing a deadly arc through the morning air. Xiang Yu pivoted, his body responding to some primal instinct rather than calculated thought. He avoided the main force of her strike, a feat that would have been impossible just days ago. Though he still couldn't match her overwhelming skill and physical superiority, Li Yao couldn't help but notice the changes in her senior brother's combat awareness. His movements contained fewer openings, his reactions came faster, and occasionally, his eyes would track her intended strikes before she executed them. His improvement wasn't in raw power or speed, but in the fundamental understanding of combat itself. "He's reading my movements," she realized with a flash of pride, even as she exploited a minor opening to sweep his legs from beneath him. Xiang Yu landed hard on his back, but rose immediately, a satisfied smile playing across his lips. The battle instinct stat was proving its worth already. Though still in its infancy at merely 2 points, it granted him insights that technique mastery alone couldn't provide. He understood now why Li Yao could overwhelm his major success knife technique with her beginner-level sword skills. Still, the potential thrilled him. With sufficient growth in this attribute, he might eventually compensate for differences in technique level or even cultivation base. The thought energized him as he resumed his stance, ready for another exchange. Their training continued uninterrupted, the rhythmic clash of weapons punctuating the morning quiet as the sun climbed higher. Only when it reached its zenith did they finally pause, both acknowledging the arrival of lunchtime with unspoken agreement. In the pavilion kitchen, Xiang Yu moved with practiced efficiency, his hands dancing between ingredients with remarkable precision. Each slice, each seasoning, each adjustment of heat reflected his growing mastery of culinary arts. Li Yao watched in undisguised amazement. Her senior brother worked with the confidence and skill of a professional chef, transforming simple ingredients into something extraordinary. The enticing aromas had barely begun to permeate the pavilion when Elder Guo appeared, accompanied once again by Huang Fengqi. "This time I must eat a lot," Fengqi declared without preamble. "I missed last night's portion." Elder Guo snorted dismissively. "So what if you missed? Since when were you entitled to our food?" "Umph. Since when was it your food?" she countered before turning towards Xiang Yu with a winning smile. "Martial nephew, you don't mind, right?" Xiang Yu responded with warm hospitality. "Of course not. I even prepared an extra portion for you." "I knew my martial nephew would agree." Fengqi beamed triumphantly. "You're so nice. Don't become grumpy like your master in the future." "Who are you calling grumpy?" Elder Guo began, his bushy eyebrows drawing together in annoyance. But as the fragrant steam wafted toward him, his protest dissolved into appreciative silence. All four settled around the table, anticipation building as they awaited Xiang Yu's culinary creation. When he finally served the meal, conversation ceased entirely. Each bite commanded complete attention, the flavors more nuanced and harmonious than ever before. Fengqi savored each mouthful with growing amazement. His cooking had been exceptional previously, but today's meal transcended even those standards. Had his skills truly advanced so dramatically overnight? The meal concluded in reverent silence, empty plates testament to its quality. Though everyone secretly wished for seconds, every morsel had been consumed. They exchanged slightly embarrassed glances, none willing to voice their desire for more, silently consoling themselves with thoughts of the evening meal to come. As Xiang Yu and Li Yao returned to their training ground, a satisfied warmth lingered in Xiang Yu's chest. The subtle differences in his cooking hadn't gone unnoticed. Even he could perceive the enhanced harmony of flavors, the improved texture, the more precise balance of seasonings. His cooking skill was advancing steadily, perhaps one day reaching heights where he might prepare spiritual foods that nourished cultivation directly. Of course, that possibility remained distant without spiritual roots, but the path was becoming clearer. They resumed their positions across from each other, swords raised in practice stances. Li Yao moved first, her blade cutting through air with lethal grace. Xiang Yu responded, his movements increasingly refined as the sword became an extension of his will rather than a mere tool in his hands. Each exchange built upon the foundations of the last, his technique growing more polished with every strike and parry. A surge of confidence warmed his chest as his instincts guided a particularly smooth countermaneuver. At this pace, true invincibility felt like an achievable goal rather than a distant fantasy. The thought had barely formed when Li Yao's blade found an opening, sending him sprawling onto the packed earth once again. First, I need to get up, he thought wryly, pushing himself from the ground with renewed determination. He reclaimed his stance, sword raised and ready to continue despite the growing collection of bruises beneath his training clothes. They practiced relentlessly throughout the afternoon, the sun tracing its arc across the azure sky as their blades clashed in rhythmic harmony. Only when twilight painted the mountain in deepening purple did they pause, acknowledging dinner time with unspoken agreement. The evening meal passed swiftly. Both disciples focused more on replenishing energy than savoring flavors. Without lingering, they returned immediately to their training ground, utilizing every precious moment of remaining daylight before continuing under the silver glow of moonlight. As midnight approached, they finally sheathed their weapons, exchanging respectful goodnights before retiring to their separate quarters. In her private chamber, Li Yao settled into the lotus position, her back perfectly straight as spiritual energy began circulating through her meridians. Since breaking through to core formation, she no longer required sleep, a luxury that transformed her cultivation regimen entirely. While daylight hours were dedicated to body refinement and sparring with her senior brother, these quiet night hours allowed uninterrupted advancement of her realm and mastery of spell techniques. Her lips curved into a satisfied smile as energy pulsed through her core. Even this limited cultivation time was more than sufficient given her extraordinary talent. Within a month, perhaps sooner, she would achieve her goal and finally retrieve the rebirth pill for her senior brother. The thought fueled her determination as she guided spiritual energy through increasingly complex paths within her body. Meanwhile, in his humble dwelling, Xiang Yu lay on his simple bed, focused entirely on the system notification hovering before his eyes. The wave of enlightenment crashed over Xiang Yu like a tsunami, flooding his mind with newfound understanding. His techniques, once murky waters, now seemed crystalline in their clarity. The doubling effect had granted him 6 additional points, a small number on paper, but the sensation was overwhelming. Xiang Yu exhaled slowly, deliberately, trying to steady himself against the mental tide. If this is what 6 points feels like, he pondered, what will happen when it doubles again? The thought both thrilled and terrified him. He mentally shifted focus to his battle instinct, noting with slight disappointment that it remained unchanged. Increasing this attribute clearly required more than diligent practice. Still, Xiang Yu's lips curved into a small smile. With his system's exponential growth, even the most stubborn stats would eventually yield. Time was on his side. His culinary insights had blossomed unexpectedly, new cooking techniques and flavor combinations materializing in his mind like perfectly timed inspirations. Tomorrow would be an excellent opportunity to test these revelations in the kitchen. Turning his attention to the Mountain Heart scripture, Xiang Yu noted the improvement. The scripture had gained 32 points total, with 20 being new growth beyond the previous 12. An impressive achievement, considering this represented pure bodily cultivation without the knife technique's conversion assistance. Speaking of which, his knife technique had transcended expectations, breaking through to the completion stage after settlement. His path forward was clear. Beyond completion lay great completion, followed by perfect mastery. Each milestone now seemed within reach rather than distant fantasies. His other techniques showed equally promising development. The sword technique had surpassed its halfway mark and would soon break through to major success after the next reset. Similarly, the iron body technique was progressing steadily through minor success, poised to reach the intermediate stage after the next settlement. The mid-grade technique remained elusive, but Xiang Yu could sense his grasp of it strengthening daily. A pattern had emerged regarding the Mountain Heart Scripture's experience translation. Practicing the intermediate sword technique hadn't contributed any experience conversion, confirming Xiang Yu's suspicion about limitations. He theorized the exchange rates followed specific rules. An intermediate technique could supply experience to the first layer at a 5:1 rate and the second layer at 10:1, but proved useless for the third layer and beyond. This pattern extended across realms. Major success techniques would offer a 1:1 exchange for the first layer, 5:1 for the second, 10:1 for the third, and nothing beyond. With his knife technique now at completion stage, it would likely provide third-layer experience at a 5:1 rate, then 10:1 when he finally broke through to the fourth layer. After that, it would become obsolete until he achieved great completion. Xiang Yu sighed, realizing his system exploitation had limits after all. No perfect loopholes existed, even in this strange cultivation world. The endless calculations were beginning to wear on him. His eyelids grew heavy as mental fatigue set in. These complex theorizations could wait until tomorrow. For now, rest called to him like a siren's song, impossible to resist. Name: Xiang Yu. Realm: body refining third layer. Species: human. Spiritual root: null. Enlightenment: low 12/1000. Battle instinct: 4/100,000. Professions: cook. 9th grade, 40 out of 100. Techniques: low-grade iron body technique. Minor success: 100/200. Basic knife technique. Completion: 0/500. Basic sword technique. Intermediate: 200/300. Scriptures: Mountain Heart Scripture. Third layer: 160/300. System function: double EXP. Cooldown: 24 hours. As dawn painted the mountain with gentle brushstrokes of amber and gold, Xiang Yu rose from his bed made of leaves with practiced discipline. His first action, now habitual, was checking his status. The knife technique's progress bar had reset to 0 while his other techniques remained untouched. This observation shaped his day's focus. The knife technique demanded priority. The sword technique had already progressed halfway to breakthrough, meaning it wouldn't matter whether or not he practiced it. Decision made, Xiang Yu gripped his knife with renewed purpose. The weapon felt like an extension of his arm now, familiar and responsive. He settled into his stance, feet planted firmly on the training ground's worn soil, body aligned with practiced precision. Each movement, each breath synchronized with an efficiency that hadn't existed mere weeks ago. Across the training yard, Li Yao observed her senior brother with analytical eyes. So, it's the knife today, she thought, her gaze tracing the clean lines of his form. There was something different about him. His knife stance possessed a confidence and stability she hadn't noticed before. Unlike his sword technique, which still showed hints of newness, his knife work existed in another realm entirely. His posture spoke volumes about his progress. The way he balanced his weight, the angle of his wrist, the measured tension in his shoulders, all indicators of someone who had transcended mere practice. Has he already reached completion stage? She wondered. He has indeed reached completion. The Empress's voice confirmed in her mind, startling Li Yao. She hadn't expected her idle speculation to be correct. The realization settled on her shoulders. Her lazy, seemingly talentless senior brother really possessed a comprehension ability rivaling her own extraordinary talents. But it wasn't just his technical mastery that had evolved. His battle awareness had transformed overnight. Where yesterday's Xiang Yu had shown promising vigilance, today's version seemed hyper-aware of every potential threat. His eyes tracked Li Yao's movements with predatory focus, already anticipating attack vectors before she committed to them. As her hand moved toward her sword hilt, she noticed his gaze following not just her hand but projecting the blade's future path through the air. A knowing smile touched her lips. He wasn't just a technical genius. He possessed combat intuition that couldn't be taught. With fluid grace, Li Yao drew her sword and launched into an attack sequence, her blade cutting through the morning air with deadly precision. Despite Xiang Yu's improved awareness, his physical capabilities remained those of a third-layer body refinement cultivator. His mind recognized the danger, but his body could barely respond in time. He twisted awkwardly, the sword missing vital points by mere inches. And so, their sparring began, a dance between her overwhelming power and his growing understanding, between her lifelong talent and his exponential improvement. Steel flashed against steel in the rising sunlight, each exchange a lesson written in sweat and determination. The morning sun glinted off steel as Li Yao effortlessly parried Xiang Yu's attack, redirecting his momentum with a casual flick of her wrist. The force sent him staggering backward, but unlike previous sessions, his feet shifted instinctively to compensate. His muscles strained as he fought against the momentum, managing to stabilize his stance without toppling over, a small victory that would have been impossible just days ago. But before he could savor this achievement, Li Yao materialized before him, her movements so swift it seemed as though she had teleported. Her sword arm lifted, blade catching the sunlight, and Xiang Yu's instincts failed him. Eyes squeezing shut, he braced for pain that never arrived. Instead, a sharp flick struck his forehead with just enough force to sting but not injure. Cautiously opening his eyes, he found Li Yao's finger extended, her lips curved in a mischievous smile. "Your battle awareness seems to be improving," she observed, pivoting gracefully on her heel. Over her shoulder, she added with teacherly authority, "Oh yeah, don't close your eyes in battle." She flowed back into her combat stance, limbs positioned with perfect precision. Xiang Yu nodded silently as he settled into his own stance. This time, he initiated the exchange, charging forward with deliberate intent. His eyes locked onto Li Yao's left leg, a tantalizing vulnerability in her otherwise flawless defense. Li Yao sighed inwardly. He had been progressing so well, yet here he was still falling for the most obvious trap. As he closed the distance, she lifted her foot and brought it down with controlled force, sending a cloud of dust billowing outward. "I told you to stop falling for these traps," she chided into the obscuring haze. "And I listened," came Xiang Yu's voice from within the cloud, closer than she expected. "What?" Confusion flickered across her face, and in that momentary lapse of focus, "Ow!" The surprised yelp escaped her lips as a sharp pain bloomed on her forehead. The dust settled, revealing Xiang Yu standing before her, satisfaction written across his features. The tables had turned. He'd repaid her little flick with one of his own. Recognition dawned in Li Yao's eyes. "It seems that you've improved quite a bit," she acknowledged, a competitive gleam entering her gaze. "Then I guess I should also let loose a little." To her surprise, Xiang Yu simply turned and began walking away. "Where are you going? Do you think you can escape?" she called after him, indignation coloring her tone. Without breaking stride, he replied simply, "It's lunchtime." "Umph." Li Yao sheathed her weapon with a practiced motion. "Don't think I'll forget this," she warned, though her threat lacked genuine menace. "And here I was thinking of making your favorite," Xiang Yu remarked casually, the bait dangled with expert precision. The transformation was instantaneous. Li Yao bounded forward, attaching herself to his arm with childlike enthusiasm. "Senior brother is the best," she exclaimed, previous grievances forgotten. Xiang Yu stroked his chin thoughtfully. "Weren't you saying something about not forgetting?" he prompted, feigning concentration. "Not forgetting? What are you talking about?" Li Yao batted her eyelashes innocently. "My memory is not all that good, so I probably already forgot. Was there something I wasn't supposed to forget?" Xiang Yu marveled at the girl's remarkable adaptability. She could shift from deadly warrior to eager child in the span of a heartbeat. "No, must have been my imagination," he conceded as they walked together toward the kitchen, her grip on his arm never loosening. After lunch, the two disciples made their way back to the training grounds, their footsteps crunching against the worn path. Li Yao practically bounced alongside Xiang Yu, her face glowing with satisfaction from a meal. "Senior brother's cooking skills are really top-notch," she exclaimed, patting her stomach contentedly. The genuine appreciation in her voice brought a rare smile to Xiang Yu's face. "Of course they are," he replied with uncharacteristic playfulness. "How else am I supposed to impress you?" The teasing comment flowed naturally, surprising even himself. When they reached the training ground, their demeanor shifted instantly. The casual camaraderie of mealtime dissolved into the focused intensity of cultivation training. Li Yao's sword flashed forward with blinding speed, her blade splitting the air as it arced towards Xiang Yu's chest. Anticipating the attack, Xiang Yu bent backward, his spine flexing just enough for the blade to whistle harmlessly above him. But Li Yao was a step ahead, redirecting her sword mid-swing with masterful control, changing its trajectory to catch him in his vulnerable position. Xiang Yu's knife came up in desperate defense, meeting the sword with a metallic clang that echoed across the training ground. The collision sent shock waves through his arm, his strength insufficient to completely deflect the superior weapon. Still, he managed to redirect it just enough, propelling himself backward to create vital distance. Li Yao pressed her advantage mercilessly, advancing with relentless determination. She allowed no respite, no moment for Xiang Yu to gather himself or formulate a counter-strategy. Each strike forced him to block rather than evade, each parry sending painful vibrations cascading through his muscles and bones. The knife in his hand began to feel like an extension of the impact rather than a shield against it. With each exchange, Xiang Yu found himself retreating, 5 steps, then 10. A quick glance over his shoulder revealed a tree looming behind him, its gnarled trunk offering no escape route. The momentary distraction cost him dearly as Li Yao launched another devastating attack, driving him back until his shoulder blades pressed against rough bark. She approached with measured steps, satisfaction gleaming in her eyes as she cornered her prey. When she finally struck, it was with calculated precision. Xiang Yu, drawing upon his growing battle awareness, waited for the exact moment when her attack committed fully, that split second when changing direction became impossible even for someone like her. He rolled sideways, executing a perfect evasion that left Li Yao's blade embedded deep within the tree trunk. The sword bit into the wood, lodging itself firmly in place. Xiang Yu seized what appeared to be a golden opportunity, launching himself toward his temporarily disarmed opponent. But with casual ease, Li Yao caught his wrist mid-strike, her fingers like iron manacles around his flesh. Before he could process what was happening, she had pivoted and thrown him to the ground, the impact driving air from his lungs. While he lay staring at the azure sky above, she calmly retrieved her sword from the tree with a single powerful tug. Coming to stand over him, Li Yao extended her hand, helping him to his feet. "Your battle awareness is great, but you still have some bad habits," she observed, brushing dirt from his robe with sisterly concern. "When my sword got stuck, you hesitated to attack." Xiang Yu nodded, inwardly acknowledging the truth of her assessment. In a real life-or-death struggle, his instinct would have been to flee the moment his opponent was disadvantaged. Survival, not victory, was always his primary objective. He had only attacked because this was training, not combat, and even then, caution had made him hesitate, suspecting a trap. Perhaps he needed to adjust his thinking, though privately he maintained that running would still be his preferred option in any genuine confrontation. They continued their rigorous practice until sunset painted the sky in vivid oranges and purples, signaling dinner time. After sharing another meal, showcasing Xiang Yu's culinary talents, they returned to the training grounds, pushing their limits until midnight finally forced them to separate. As usual, the first sensation to wash over Xiang Yu was his enlightenment doubling. The experience grew more intense with each cycle, a cascade of revelations flooding his consciousness like a mental tidal wave. New insights materialized within his mind, connections forming between concepts he'd previously seen as disparate. The sensation persisted, a symphony of understanding playing throughout his awareness before gradually subsiding into a contented hum. Following this was the doubling of his cooking experience. Culinary knowledge blossomed in his mind. Flavor combinations, heat control techniques, ingredient preparations he hadn't considered before. The insights arrived like scattered puzzle pieces slotting perfectly into place, enhancing his already considerable skill. When the feeling suddenly ceased, he recognized that his cooking abilities teetered on the precipice of advancement. Though slightly disappointed he couldn't immediately cross this threshold, he accepted that the next doubling would likely trigger this breakthrough. Shifting his awareness to battle instinct, Xiang Yu noted with mild frustration that the day's rigorous training had also yielded no perceptible improvement to the stat. The metric remained stubborn, resisting conventional advancement methods. Still, he took comfort in his system's inevitable progression. Even without personal improvement, the doubling effect didn't let him down. His attention moved to the Mountain Heart scripture. While it had accumulated additional points, they hardly mattered given its position past the halfway mark. More significantly, the system's doubling had propelled him beyond the threshold, breaking through to the scripture's fourth layer. This advancement corresponded directly to his body cultivation, elevating him to the body refining fourth layer. He could feel newfound strength coursing through his muscles and bones. Though he couldn't tell by how much exactly his strength had increased, he knew that he was still leagues behind his prodigious junior sister. The gap between them remained a chasm, albeit a slightly narrower one. Examining his other techniques, he noted the iron body had likewise crossed its halfway point. After doubling, it had advanced to the intermediate stage, with immediate physical manifestations. His skin had hardened perceptibly, not quite achieving genuine iron-like properties, but impressive nonetheless. Running his fingers across his forearm, he could feel the subtle difference. His knife technique had improved by 20 points, less than usual, but expected given its recent advancement to completion stage. As cultivators often noted, mastering a technique through the beginner to completion stages represented only the foundation. Beyond that lay the arduous path of refinement and perfection, where progress naturally slowed. Meanwhile, his sword technique, already beyond its halfway mark, had leaped forward to major success after doubling. The rapid advancement didn't surprise him. The shared principles between knife and sword techniques created a natural synergy, allowing insights from one to accelerate progress in the other. As for the mid-grade movement technique, Xiang Yu had yet to make concrete progress, though he sensed he was drawing closer to comprehension. A few more cycles of enlightenment doubling might finally grant him the breakthrough needed to grasp this elusive skill. After meticulously examining the day's improvements, Xiang Yu called up his complete status. Name: Xiang Yu. Realm: body refining fourth layer. Species: human. Spiritual root: null. Enlightenment: low, 24/1000. Battle instinct: 8/100,000. Professions: cook, 9th grade, 90 out of 100. Techniques: low-grade iron body technique. Intermediate, 0/300. Basic knife technique. Completion, 40/500. Basic sword technique. Major success, 0 out of 400. Scriptures: Mountain Heart Scripture, 4th layer, 2/400. System function: double EXP, cooldown, 24 hours. First, he observed that the scripture's exchange rate had reverted to 10:1. Not ideal, but at least there was measurable progress. Turning his attention to his techniques, he noted both iron body and sword techniques had reset to 0 after their respective advancements. The iron body technique caused him little concern. He could continue developing it passively by wearing weighted clothing during his daily activities. The sword technique, however, required more deliberate consideration. With both sword and knife techniques needing substantial development, he briefly contemplated dividing his training day between the two weapons as he had previously. But after careful deliberation, he decided against this approach. While effective for accelerating progress, weapon switching disrupted his momentum, making him achieve less in both techniques. Better to dedicate the entire day to sword training, allowing complete focus and deeper immersion. The knife technique already possessed a foundation for doubling, so this approach wouldn't significantly impede his overall advancement. With his training strategy settled, Xiang Yu closed his eyes, mentally preparing for tomorrow's intensive sword practice. In her chamber, Li Yao sat in a lotus position as she immersed herself in cultivation. Visible tendrils of qi swirled through the air around her, luminous wisps spiraling toward her body before being absorbed. The ethereal energy flowed into her meridians, circulating through her pathways before finally settling in her core, enriching the concentrated power stored there. This rhythmic dance of energy continued uninterrupted throughout the night, the soft glow of qi illuminating her serene features as she remained utterly still, lost in meditative communion with the world's essence. Only when morning light filtered through her window did she finally stir, her eyes opening with measured control. Li Yao rose gracefully, stretching muscles that had remained motionless for hours. She reached for her weapon with practiced familiarity, her fingers wrapping around the hilt with anticipation. The sparring sessions with her senior brother had become a highlight of her daily routine, especially now that he displayed such remarkable progression. Each day brought noticeable improvements, as if he transformed overnight. She found herself genuinely curious about how much he might have advanced since yesterday's training. When they met at their usual training ground, Li Yao immediately noticed the sword in Xiang Yu's grip rather than the knife he'd used the day before. So if it's the sword today, she thought with interest as she charged forward, her own blade describing a deadly arc through the morning air. From his private chamber overlooking the training grounds, Elder Gua observed his disciples with pride. The elder stroked his long beard contemplatively, his experienced eyes narrowing as he tracked Xiang Yu's movements. Was he seeing correctly? The boy's swordsmanship displayed signs of having reached the major success stage. The elder shook his head in quiet amazement. Xiang Yu had begun practicing the sword technique mere days ago, yet his progress defied conventional expectations. Perhaps his junior sister wasn't merely indulging in fanciful theories. The boy might indeed possess the potential to unlock that ancient physique she was so enthusiastic about. As the sparring intensified, Elder Gua noted another promising development. Xiang Yu's battle awareness had notably sharpened, his defensive movements and positioning reflecting growing tactical acumen. With each passing day, he seemed to embody more qualities of a true fighter, his instincts refining themselves through these repeated encounters. Yet one disappointing trait persisted. Even when presented with clear counterattack opportunities, Xiang Yu remained reluctant to press his advantage, preferring defensive maneuvers over offensive strikes. The elder sighed deeply. It seemed the disciple's cautious, some might say cowardly, nature remained deeply ingrained, resistant to change despite his technical improvements. With a subtle gesture, Elder Gua reached toward his spatial ring. A flash of light preceded the appearance of a weathered manual in his palm, its edges frayed and its cover worn by the passage of countless years. It seems I'll have to use this, he thought, examining the ancient text with contemplative eyes. I don't know if the boy can learn it, though.